What would happen if Final Fantasy Rebirth introduces Sid and they don't have him talk about the tea? I mean,
I will burn my copy of Rebirth.
yeah, I think I might just power it off, uninstall, and demand a refund immediately if
Yeah.
that's the
I'm
case.
gonna set my copy on fire. I'm gonna record myself doing it, send it to Square, and then tell them that I'm coming for them. So
That's right. There's certain
yeah.
things in certain beloved games. You can change the combat system, change the
Sure.
storyline, change the timeline, throw it all
Mhm.
out the window, but you give Sid his T line or I'm out.
Yeah, absolutely. You give him his abusive commentary, or I'm gonna be furious.
Or I'm
You
gonna
take that
leave.
away. Yeah,
Right.
you take that away.
Right.
I'm leaving.
Man, I'm so pumped for that. We're only 11 days from when we're recording this. No, 12 days when we're recording this from playing the full version of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. 12 days.
Honestly, I just don't even. It's like not even in my mind sometimes, and then like something like reminds me of it. I'm like, I don't even understand. Like, how is this possible? How is it
How
already
is
almost
this
here? Like,
happening? Yeah.
yeah, how is
Yeah.
this happening?
And hey,
Like,
that's impressive, right? Was it 3 years? No, was it
I
2020?
think that was also 2019, right? Or was it 2020?
I think it was 2020.
Hold on.
2020. It was 2020. Yeah, yeah, because it was Last of Us Part 2 year. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
April
so
2020.
not quite 4 years because it came out, yeah, a couple months from now, 4 years ago. That turnaround time, though, all the stuff we're seeing about like devs and all that stuff, that's impressive.
Well,
Because this
especially
is
for
not
Square.
looking like a small game. Let's be honest. This is not going to be a
Yeah,
small
no.
game.
Well, that's the thing, because it's like anytime they would talk about the size of the world and like stuff, they definitely kind of like leaned away, like, oh, it's not going to be like full open world, and it doesn't seem like it's full open world. It's just huge areas that are
Right.
interconnected.
Yeah.
But like the size of it, yeah, and you know,
More open than
Square being the
16, you
joke.
think? Because 16 had a lot of
Yeah,
big open areas, but this looks even more open, I think.
yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Because
Um,
16 I wouldn't call open world, and some might
yeah,
even say it's not the most open area, but it certainly had open areas, right? Where you kind of warp to a
yeah.
place, and then you have, in some cases, you had a whole bunch of corners to explore. It just depended. Some of the areas were smaller, and
Yeah, there
more.
were like paths where there would be like you go through like this wooded area or this like kind of very heavy like cliffed area where there
Yep.
was like narrow paths that you'd kind of go in and then it opened up a little bit. So
Yeah, I retread my steps a bunch in that game, and I mean that in a good way. Like I didn't mind doing that to explore. Like I didn't have to. I
yeah,
just wanted to. I wanted to go back and find the extra stuff or do the hunts or whatever else.
you're
But
also on an island or like two islands that are like
oh,
a
that's
whole
true.
island. So as opposed to a whole world, which is what seven is like literally it's a whole world. So you know,
Yeah, and the world's not doing
yeah,
so great thanks to Shinra. These jerks.
yeah, those sons of bitches.
Yeah, these guys are the worst. All right, well, we
Oh,
might as well start this episode, Dan. It's just the two of us. We're gonna get rolling with episode 207. And I think Jeff's going to join us again. That's his thing now. He likes to make an entrance like midway, 2/3 of the way through the show. Then he shows up and he's like, "What's up? Here's everything I'm doing." That's how he does it now, which is
yeah,
fine.
he comes in. He's like, everyone, shut up! Like, listen to
Yeah,
what I have to say right now.
yeah.
Like,
Here's all my thoughts. I'm just going to dump them
yep,
on you. But
yep.
there's a couple new things to talk about. Couple. I'm most interested to hear your thoughts and to talk a little bit through some of the news, like especially with Xbox. That might be the biggest thing we talk about, just in terms of what the conversation in the industry is these days. There are some new things out that I think are mostly worth exploring. Um, but yeah, so we'll get into all of it. Some of it we might skip if Jeff isn't here to talk about it, because I know he's played a few of these things that we haven't. Um, so let's just jump right into it first. First of all, Dapper_Chocobo on Twitch. What are we streaming these days? What can people tune in to watch? What's happening?
I was gonna point at it, but I don't know if you can actually see. Because for me,
Final Fantasy 2?
okay. Well, it's so I have the physical like copy of the 1 through 6
Nice. Nice. I
pixel
can see it.
remasters. So
Yeah, yeah.
so
You're
we're
on
on
2
two
right
right
now.
now. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, I'm on two
Okay.
right now. Um, it's interesting because like one feels like an homage to Dungeons and Dragons. Like clearly they kind of just
Hmm.
took the idea of Dungeons and Dragons and in a simple RPG,
Okay.
like the rules of turn based and leveling up characters and stuff like that, and magic and how magic works. This game's very weird. It's actually quite quirky.
Two is
Um,
very weird.
yeah, it's apparently
Is
one of the more
Was it
divisive
them trying
ones.
to like, all right, we need to be less D&D and create our own thing? Is that kind of what they're doing with 2? Because
Yeah,
I know by 3 they started to establish like the job system and stuff. They started to do a little bit more of that going into 4, I think.
Well, even the first one technically, because you have a black mage, you have warrior, white mage, like you have that in the first one. But like 3 has more for
Yeah.
sure, and then 5 is like even more, which 5 is like I
That's
think
good.
the best
Five.
version of that.
Yeah.
Um, but 2 is just yeah, 2 is it's interesting, but definitely weird because like it's not traditional. Like your characters aren't level 1 in the beginning, and then you like level up and your stats increase. It's like everything has its own level. So like if you're so the main character Firion, he starts off with the sword. So then you're leveling up sword, so to speak. So you start at level 1 sword, and then as you
Sword.
do sword, and you just and every time you're getting in fights, you're leveling that up, and then axe and so on and so forth. Your armor also is leveling up. Magic individual spells, Tim, have levels,
See, I like
which
that a
is like
lot
a
too.
lot. It is cool, but then I got so yesterday or last night I got to a realization. I'm like, oh, this is kind of it could be a bit of a pain. I'm at a certain point where a lot of my spells are level 5,
Okay.
but then I gave one of my party members a new spell, so it's level 1. So
Got it.
that's gonna do like barely any damage compared to my other
The
spells.
spell levels up on its own no matter who's using it, and then it's that powerful for anybody who uses it.
It's per individual.
Got it.
So yeah, so that individual had I had Thunder on him level 5 up to I had Thunder up to level 5. I gave him Blizzard, but that was level 1. So level 1 Blizzard's going to do like basically nothing compared to
Yeah.
level. So like now you have to like do a bunch of grinding to catch that spell up to level, at least level 5 to try to. So it's like it gives you a lot of like freedom to do what you want to customize the character, which is cool and neat,
Yeah.
but like you have to like take into consideration early on like what is really the
Yeah.
structure
Plan
that
it
you
out
want to
ahead
do.
of time. Otherwise, you're going to be grinding to catch things up.
A
That's what
lot
it
of
seems
grinding,
like.
yeah. There are tricks to it apparently, and I didn't really think of that until yesterday. Like you can basically attack yourself, heal yourself, and level up those abilities like kind of quickly. And apparently that's like a people know that, and that's like why they don't like it because you can kind of cheese it that way. But I'm kind
Nice.
of I'm kind of for that. So
Yeah, me too. Especially with older games that you're like trying to re-experience, but you don't necessarily need to spend 80 hours on the thing. But
yeah.
yeah,
Um,
that's interesting. I guess I didn't realize that two
yeah.
kind of went some of those weird directions. Yeah,
But
that's
it is
interesting.
it's very important. It's a very important Final Fantasy, at least in my opinion, because it's like a lot of like the things that have been in the series. It comes from 2 Chocobos first introduction 2.
This is the first Chocobo. Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
first Chocobos. Sid, I think the first actual intro. This Pixel remaster had Sid in it, Final Fantasy 1, but somebody was telling me that they added that in for Pixel remaster. He wasn't
Got it.
in the OG Final Fantasy 1. So Sid first appearances too. A lot of the monsters that we're familiar with show up in 2. So yeah,
Dang.
it's pretty
All
important.
right, Final Fantasy 2, and you're pretty far into it. How many streams do you think you have left of this one? A
I mean,
while.
I'm probably so when I base it off of what I like pull up on YouTube just to kind of get an idea, I'm
Mhm.
probably like 40% the way through.
Okay.
So I still have
Is
a little
it
ways.
when you're streaming that and chatting with folks and I've seen because I've watched your streams and where you're trying to interact with people and be entertaining and let them have fun and interrupt and all that kind of stuff.
Right? Yeah.
Like for a game like this, for really any RPG, because you've done a few RPGs, but
Mhm.
especially one like this where you're like, oh man, do I have to grind here? Like, do you ever just kind of like skip ahead? Like, hey, I'm gonna play a little bit of this when no one's around just to catch up with grinding and tell them what I did? Or are you like a purist? You only play it if you say you're gonna stream it, you only play it when you're streaming.
So with Xenogears, I did a little bit of grinding for the what was it, the death blows.
Okay.
I did that with Xenogears just a little bit. So not level grinding, but to get some of those death blows. And then yeah, with Final Fantasy 1 and this one, I've done a little grinding on the side just to kind of have it be a good pace.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to like fall behind on streams where like then I'm struggling and I'm spending I don't want to spend an entire stream grinding basically.
I'm
Uh,
I'm totally with you.
yeah.
According to how long to beat, it's anywhere from 20 to 30 hours, depending on how completionist you are.
Oh wow. Okay. That's interesting because the YouTube video I found it was like 10 hours. So that person plowed through the game apparently.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't know how
basing it off.
accurate this is. Let's
Yeah.
see. You know how it's hard to tell. Oh, let's see. 400. About 400. Oh, okay. 829 total people were pulled for this, and the average is 25 hours. That's everywhere
Okay.
from mainlining it all the way to, completionist.
Interesting.
Some people who are
Yeah.
rushed are down the 15-hour, 16-hour range.
Okay. Yeah, this video here that I have that's a full playthrough, no commentary, is was it 10 hours and 24 minutes.
Dang.
So this
Okay. All
person's a
right.
pro.
Yeah. Either they're a pro or I don't know. Maybe everyone else is just slow. All right.
Apparently.
So make sure you guys go check that out. If you're listening and watching, go check out Dapper_Chocobo on Twitch. And Dan always announces when he's going to be streaming. So go check that out. And hopefully you're not too distracted when Rebirth hits and you'll be able to keep plowing through the old school
I know.
Final Fantasies. That's going to
Yeah.
be, it's going to be a challenge for you to figure out your
It's an
time.
easy distraction, Tim, to
A
be fair.
very easy distraction. Yes, it is. You're going to be sitting there playing Final Fantasy 2, just mad, like, I should be playing Rebirth right now.
Yeah, this looks like garbage compared to
What am
Rio.
I
This looks
doing?
stupid.
What am I doing?
This looks dumb.
Someone else is playing ahead of me. Anyway, all right. So let's talk about a couple new things that are out this week. If Jeff does join us, we'll get his thoughts on Mario versus Donkey Kong. I know he got that game. That is a remake of, I believe, the Game Boy Advance game, or was it the Game Boy Color? I know it was a Game Boy. It was a portable Nintendo game.
Yeah, I think it might have been DS. Yeah, I think it was DS.
Oh, it was the DS one?
I think so. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was originally a DS game.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
He's on his way too, so he'll be here.
He's on his way. All right, so there was Mario vs. Donkey Kong on Game Boy Advance.
Oh, there was. Okay.
I think that's the one that I remember. I'm pretty sure they made one for DS as well, but the one I remember playing was on the Game Boy Advance, I think.
Okay.
So anyway, whatever this is a remake of, it is a new version of it. It's got, upgraded graphics and all this stuff. So Jeff can give us his thoughts on that when he does join. I'll talk a little bit about Banishers Ghost of New Eden. I did get this one. This is Don't Nod's latest game, and it is not one of their kind of like walking simulator narrative adventures. Like, oh shoot, what's the one with the tornado and the time traveling girl? I always forget the name of this game.
Oh, Life is Strange.
Life is Strange, yeah. So it's not one of those necessarily, although I will say that the characters they introduce right away, you already are very intrigued by. They seem real. The voice acting is very good. The matching up of the mouths with the animation, you can tell it's AA in terms of just their budget and all that kind of stuff, because it's kind of like, okay, that doesn't quite match up, and that's fine. But the voice acting is good. Generally speaking, the character models look good, even if their animation's a little bit not quite right. That's why people compare it to stuff like Greedfall or other Focus Entertainment games, where it's like they don't quite have the budget to do what Final Fantasy 16 or God of War or those kind of games do, but it's still pretty good. Like, there's still elements of it that I'm like, hey, this has got some cool style to it. So
I care more about the quality of the VO as opposed to necessarily the lip singing not being perfect,
100% agree. So, there were those moments in Final Fantasy 16 during certain scenes, like for side characters, they wouldn't have it perfectly matched up, and I didn't care because all the voice actors, down to like the most random villager, were really well voice acted. So give me that all day, every day, like you're saying, over, perfect lip animation. So anyway, this one starts out where you are a couple, this guy named Red and this lady named, I think her name is like Antia or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how you say it. But she is clearly teaching him how to do this banishing. They're referred to as two of the best banishers. You don't know entirely what that entails yet. I'm very, very early. I'm still in the little opening prologue, the big event where they get separated. I'm pretty confident from the trailers one of them's dead. I'm pretty sure she's a ghost in most of the trailers, but I'm not positive. But at the beginning, I'm controlling her actually and doing my fighting with her, and she apparently has been teaching him how to do some banishing. And it's kind of set during, from what I can tell at least, maybe 1700s or something, and you're sailing from somewhere in Europe over to the colonies over in America, and you're there on a mission, like someone has sent for you, and you arrive there, and that person is no longer there, but some other weird characters are there instead, and so you two are trying to figure out what happened. There's some people who are dying. There's some kind of curse on this village, so you're trying to figure that stuff out. So it's very intriguing right out of the gate. It has a very cool like time, like a period piece vibe to it. Like it makes you really feel.
I was gonna say it's not a make believe world. It's Earth.
Yeah, it's like historical fiction, like historical fantasy type of a vibe, and I really am digging that. So so far the combat feels fine, but it does feel AA. When you're playing your God of Wars and Elden Rings and Zelda and whatever else that just has perfected the way that combat feels.
Yeah.
And when you play those games and you play something like this, like, all right, this feels a little bit lighter and not quite right. There's something that's just a little off about it, but it's still fine. Like the combat works
Hmm.
pretty. And I do like they've got this banish mechanic where once you build up that meter enough, you can hit A, and these ghostly creatures that are attacking you, you can give them one stab in the chest, and they just disappear in a big puff of smoke. So you get this banish ability too. So anyway, very very early, very cool vibes. It actually got me very interested in going back. I own Vampire, the other Don't Nod action adventure
Yeah.
game. I own that on Steam, and I've never played. I bought it recently, actually on sale, and I've never played it. So it makes me curious to try that at some point too, because I know that's like it's considered another double A, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10 type of game.
Yeah.
I just never tried
It
it, but
always looked interesting to me. Yeah. Yeah, it's just the whole combat thing with them specifically, because they're just you. At least we know them for a long time as more of a studio that makes games that are about choices. You're walking
right.
around and just doing choice. So combat is just seems kind of foreign, but maybe as they keep going on and they get better with it, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't have that weight to it that I think I'm used to with the really quality games where it just feels
Yeah.
right. But then again, I'm very, very, very early. Maybe there's additional, maybe there's weapons or there's skills or something that'll adjust it a little bit. But so far, I am interested in the storyline. They've got me intrigued. I'm going to keep playing this one. So
Is this a full price game or is it a little cheaper? Or
it was $50.
okay,
So I
so a
think
little
it's
cheap.
60 on console, but 50 on PC.
Gotcha.
And I don't know why that is. I don't know if there's publishing fees on consoles that we don't know about. Maybe Steam's cheaper. Steam and Epic Games both maybe are cheaper to publish on. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So this is from Don't Nod, and so far so good. At least story wise, character wise, they've got me intrigued. So it'll even if
Good.
the combat never rises above like a 7 out of 10 vibe, the overall setting and story has me pretty engaged. So
Yeah, I remember the initial trailer when they showed it. I was like, oh, that actually. I was like shocked that it was like Don't Nod, because it's like, oh, okay, this looks like it has combat in it, and it just seems like it has an interesting setting and
yeah.
vibe to it. So
I get the feeling it's going to be one of those stories where you got to make a tough choice at the end because I know that
mm, yeah,
their whole saying is leave living for what is it? Life for the living and death for the dead or something like that. The whole idea is that they're banishing these spirits that shouldn't still be here. At least that's what the vibe that I'm getting. So I have a feeling there's going to be like a sad ending to this whole thing, but who knows?
well,
I don't
Tim,
know.
they do like to make us sad. So
Don't Nod loves to make you cry. We know that for
yeah,
sure.
they do.
So yeah, there's that. Speaking of crying, Skull and Bones is out, and I know that some people have mixed feelings on this one.
Good
So it's
tears, bad tears.
good tears, bad tears, pirate tears. I talked about it some last week already. I have not purchased and played the full version yet. It's been a super
Okay.
busy week, so I actually limited. I was like, you know what? I'm only going to buy what I'm about to play that moment. So I did actually just today purchase Banishers and fired it up this evening,
Okay.
a little earlier. So I haven't bought Skull and Bones yet. I wouldn't be surprised if I buy it this week though. Like I did have a lot of fun with the beta, the open beta from last week.
Yeah.
Um, it operates more as a single player game than I thought it would.
Mm,
Um, if you can attack other players, I didn't find that to be happening, and I feel like a couple of my shots would have hit other play because you'll see other player boats, and a lot of times you're
yeah.
going to the same location to take out an NPC or to gather some kind of loot or something for a mission. And I could have sworn some of my shots should have hit them and didn't. So I don't know if PvP is something you have to activate, or maybe that's not.
Right.
Maybe I was just in the entry area and then that becomes a thing later, more like
Yeah. Certain
CvP,
areas.
maybe. Yeah, could be certain
Yeah.
areas are PvP centric or whatever. I'm not sure, but I do think the ship combat is pretty fun. It's pretty well done. If you liked Black Flag and the ship to ship combat they have, that part's pretty good. The boarding is hilariously stupid. You literally just get close enough to hit a button and then
Yeah.
the boarding's over. Like
So
it happens off screen and it's just like you've boarded
I
them. It's like okay.
I saw somebody on Twitter being like, yeah, so here's this like 11-year-old video game compared to Skull and Bone, and it was Black
It was
Flag,
Black Flag.
and
I
like
saw that too.
the detail of just like,
Gorgeous.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, come on, Ubisoft, like you really like,
It's not unlike when people showed Arkham Knight. They showed Harley Quinn walking in
mm,
Arkham Knight versus Harley Quinn walking around in Suicide Squad, where it's like
yeah,
Same characters, same development. How does it look so much better? Now, you can make an argument that's not fair because one's an open world online
Sure.
multiplayer and one, totally, yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but still, that's a lot of time to pass and have something look worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so anyway, I think it's fun. Is it $70 fun? Probably not for most people.
Hmm.
Um, I get the feeling it's relatively shallow with repetitive missions. I just kind of like
Sure.
the set. I like the pirate setting. There's so many customizations for your pirate and for your ship, and I loved that loop in Sea of Thieves. I loved making my ship look cool and getting better outfits for my pirate. But I'm not going to try to twist anyone else's arm to play that because I don't think Sea of Thieves is for everybody. And I think Skull and Bones is in that same bucket of like, hey, if you like the setting, there's enough good gameplay here to have a good time. That's kind of how I would describe it. So I think this it's getting a lot of like sevens, and I
Hmm.
think that's probably fair based on the beta time that I spent with it. So
To put a positive spin on it, at
yeah,
least based off of their track record with these type of games,
yeah.
Ubisoft does like to kind of keep massaging their games and making them better,
Rainbow Six
tweaking
Siege,
things.
right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that
So
one of them?
yeah,
Rainbow Six Siege was
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like I don't know if this seems like it's not a hit, but then over time it became like it
A
found its
huge hit.
community and
Yeah,
it became a massive hit. So yeah.
yeah.
I do think it's if you like pirate games and are looking for like ship to ship combat, this is super fun. If you want to
Hmm.
go land and sea, if you want to jump back and forth, just go back to Black Flag and play that. Still plays great. Still an awesome game. Just go play that if that's really what you
Well, they're
want.
remaking it supposedly, right? Or did they actually confirm that they're
Yeah,
remaking it?
I think that's still a rumor. I think.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Uh, I don't think they've confirmed that. And if they did, it was just verbally. It's certainly not something they've put out any like official
Yeah,
artwork or video for. But
yeah, I
yeah.
couldn't remember.
So yeah, Skull and Bones is decent, and I would say the best way to try it. I'm pretty sure you can get it with Ubisoft Plus. You can always just subscribe to that for 1 month, and for $15 you could try it there if you wanted to. $70 is pretty steep for what feels like a much shallower experience. But to be fair, I only played about 4 or 5 hours maybe of the open beta. I may not have even scratched the surface of what's in this game.
Right.
So
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, last but not least is this Lease Funga, the Time Shift Warrior game from the Quantic Dream spin-off studio. Again, Jeff and I talked about this a little bit last week
Oh
too.
yeah.
Um, this is a cool game. It really is a cool game. They have strategy, action RPG sort of thing where you do a quick run through whatever enemies you can with limited time, and you kill as many as you can, and then it resets, and then that ghost of you goes through and kills those enemies, and you have a new version of you that goes and kills
Mm,
the rest of them. So you have to like kill everybody in this whole arena space within the time limit, and you can send out what's called remnants of you. So you go kill as many as you can, and then you have to kind of remember and watch where that remnant went, and then you do a different path. And so it's a little bit puzzly, like strategy along with the action. So it's a creative game. They did a pretty good job with it. Um, yeah, so
that's
let's
an
find
interesting idea.
it is a cool idea. Yeah, we've got I think it'll come out next week. I know I did a short let's play of the demo for our channel, so you guys can check that out.
Combat wise, it like sort of reminds me of Hades, which I
It's
mean,
got some vibes of that with a lot of like the dashing and the slicing and all that stuff, and you get
yeah.
new abilities as you go. Yep, there's some similarities to that for sure. Um,
So
yeah, but the
that's
the
pretty cool.
concept of using your own, almost like when Mario Kart, when you see a ghost of yourself racing, it's kind of got that vibe to it where it's like a, it's like a ghost version of you that you actually see on the screen running and killing enemies, and they have a little skull over their head if you've already
Yeah.
killed them, so you know to ignore them. Um, because the whole idea of like time travel, if you start attacking them and they already had a skull, you'll break that time loop, and now you'll have to kill them again with your new version of you. So like you don't want to interfere with the ones you've already killed. I don't know. It's very, very creative. And over time, they introduce new puzzles where like the timing has to be right. Like you'll have to attack this enemy and its partnered up twin enemy at the same time with your two different. Like you have to time it up so they die at the same time. Otherwise, they come back. Things like that. So
Yeah, that's
pretty
cool.
creative stuff. Yeah, I like it. All right, couple quick ones to talk about. Hell's Gate is out. I know that Jeff talked about that. News Tower is out. I'll talk
Mm.
about that in a little bit with some demos I played. Fight Crab 2, which looks so
Oh my
stupid.
god.
I
Is
I,
a
I love that.
sequel?
I love there's a sequel. I love that there's dumb games like this out there, man. It's so funny. Um,
Kind of forgot about Fight Club.
Ultros is out. It reminds me of that one where you're the guitarist playing guitar in space. What was
Mm-hmm.
it? Art was it art something? What was that one called?
Artful Escape.
Artful Escape.
Yeah.
Ultras has similar visual vibes in some ways to that, where it looks like a painting, a really brightly colored painting. But it's a Metroidvania, side-scrolling. I think it's fine. Something about the combat wasn't quite my favorite, but it's fine. Um, so I played the demo for that too. And then Islands of Insight, which Jeff is loving. He said it's this really awesome
Oh yeah.
collection of puzzles that he highly recommends. But again, if he does join us, we'll let him talk about that along with Mario. Last but not least,
Uh,
Tomb Raider 1 through 3 remastered is out, and apparently
yeah.
people are digging it.
It
So
looks great.
yeah,
Like the
yeah,
actual visual tweaks that they did to it, like it looks
yeah,
pretty great.
clearly upgraded, which is cool. But
Yeah.
yeah. So
Real quick though, the screenshot of Fight Crab 2, it literally looks like a lobster versus a crab. They look like they have Buster swords, Tim. They look like they have Buster swords. I'm like, is there like
you
Final
might need to
Fantasy
interrupt your
7
Final
DLC?
Fantasy 2 stream to play this. Is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I was like, oh, is there a Final Fantasy 7 DLC here?
Hey, they did it for
Like
Power
Power?
Wash Simulator,
Yeah, I
so
was gonna say.
nothing's off the table.
No, that
Um,
would be amazing.
that would be amazing. Yeah, Fight Crab 2 is very real. That exists.
Yes, it
Someone
does
made that.
exist. It's a thing that exists.
Oh my goodness. All right, so that's all I've got for new games, new stuff that's out. And we'll circle back if Jeff does end up joining us. But I wanted to talk about some of the headlines, specifically that connected with Xbox. But we'll do that one last. We'll do the big Xbox because last week we kind of teased that Phil has promised he's going to straighten everything out and give everyone the answers they're looking for. So we'll talk about their discussion here in a minute. But a couple headlines that I thought were interesting. So number one, the Switch 2 is now heavily rumored to not be launching this year. Like there was all kinds of rumors that it's happening this
Mhm.
year. Nintendo seems to be ramping up for that. I guess there were some similar things that they've been saying and planning on that seemed to follow a pattern of what they did last time. Well, now it's starting to seem, according to some rumblings, that it's actually going to be in 2025.
Sure.
I even heard someone say that they really liked the spring launch because, again, they like to be set apart from the other consoles.
Right,
So
right, right.
they might even be targeting another spring, like maybe announce it end of this year, release it beginning of next, but who knows? Who
Yeah,
knows?
when did the Switch come out? Like, what month did it
It's
come
like
out?
March. It was a March release, I think.
Please. Yeah, it was March 3rd. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that. I like it earlier in the month because then it's like, oh, a fun new toy in the beginning of the year. And
Yeah.
then I wonder what's going to come out in the fall, which
Totally.
for the Switch, Tim, you remember what came out on the fall for the Switch the first year?
Mario Odyssey and
Yeah.
Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Mario plus Rabbids. That was a good year. That was a really good year.
It was just like, yeah, exactly. Breath of the Wild too, right? Wasn't it
Well, that
Odyssey
was
and Breath of the
that
Wild?
was a lot, but that was a launch game. That launched.
Oh
with-
yeah, it was a launch. Yeah, which I
Yeah.
mean, that's an amazing thing to launch
What a-
with. Like,
I can't believe they launched with that game. That is insane.
I mean,
The
that's
problem with them
amazing.
doing that was like they've set expectations so freaking high. Not
Sure,
only for
sure.
this console itself, I think expectations for the hardware aren't super high. Everyone's going to expect like, hey, as long as you can, just be an upgrade from what you were before, we'll be fine. Because they
Sure.
put out Tears of the Kingdom, which is an incredibly impressive game, both technically and visually
Yeah.
and like all of it. So it's not like their hardware needs to be like 10x. It doesn't have to be like 10 times better, but upgrade it a bit. Give us some better frame rates, some better resolution. How about be more powerful? I'd love it for it to be able to run like more games like Mortal Kombat without being embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like it'd be great
Right.
for it to be able to do some of that stuff. Like a
Yeah.
low tier PC, like PS6 and Xbox Series Z, whatever that's going to be. Those can be like your high end PC level stuff, and then let
Yeah.
the Switch be like your low end PC.
I mean, to be fair, very different builds of what the
Uh-huh.
machines are. So you're trying to squish everything into this tiny little portable, you know what I mean? So I mean, it makes sense they're not going to be exactly on par.
Totally.
I think.
I
But
will say though,
give me
what would Tears of the Kingdom have looked like on a PS5? Like, come on.
what I think of before that, Tim, is give me a freaking Pokemon that doesn't run the way
You're
that
right.
it runs.
You're right, because Tears of the Kingdom is already beautiful on the Switch. You're right. Like, take one of the games that needs help, and that's true.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, like again, that game was fun, but for God's sakes, like unacceptable.
No Power World.
No, yeah.
No Power World.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Switch 2, and there's a part of me that's a little relieved to hear that too. Like I, I, I can't wait for the next Nintendo thing because I love my Switch so much. That
Hmm.
being said, I don't necessarily want the stress of another console buying
No,
cycle.
next year.
It's
That's
become
fine.
such a dumpster fire, and nobody has been able to solve it. Steam couldn't solve it with the Steam Deck. Sony couldn't solve it, of course. I think that's why Sony sales for their hardware aren't as high as they probably could be because they couldn't quite figure out how
Mm,
to properly distribute their system to folks who wanted it. It just got dominated by bots and scammers or spammers, or whatever the right word is.
yeah.
Both. So anyway,
Steam did a decent job, didn't they? Didn't they have a whole like system of doing it in waves, and people were getting their
Steam
hands
was
on it?
better than the other ones, yes, but it's
Yeah.
still, I mean, that could have just been more manufacturing than the pre-order
Okay.
process.
Yeah.
Um, just took a little bit of time, but anyway,
Yeah,
all
but the
that all
queue
that to
setup.
say, I'm okay with Switch 2. If that's true, if this rumor turns out to be true, and 2024 is not a year with any, new console from Nintendo, that's fine. I have full confidence they'll continue to put out fun games just like they have pretty much every year of the Switch's life. There's always fun games for Nintendo. So yeah. By the way, speaking of which, Nintendo's making fun games. We don't know if Sony's going to be. It sounds like no major exclusives are going to hit before April of 2025. So I saw this news
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, what a bummer. What a weird time, too, because this is usually when you get peak games. If you look at the console life cycle, this is when you start rolling out like the instant classics. If you look at like
Sure.
PS4 and PS3, like this timeline right here, as you're in the final third of the console's like major life cycle, and for them to say no major exclusives for over a year, but then you look at what's actually already announced. Rise of the Ronin's about to hit. We've got
Hmm.
Rebirth that's about to hit. So even if that's all they get this year, we know that's not all they're going to get. But if that's all they have this year, those are two major exclusives that aren't their first party heavy hitters like God of War or
Yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima. I think that's what they're saying. They're saying there's no major like Spider-Man game or whatever. I think that's kind of what they're hinting at. No God of War, no Horizon.
Yeah, and that's the kind of crap that like then all the children, I mean adults, I mean children, on the internet, then use as fuel, Tim, to
Of course.
to fuel their war that they have, their console wars. So
That's very true. You're right. It almost feels like, with Xbox being so under the microscope with what in the world are they doing? Is Xbox no more and everyone's overreacting? It's almost like this is just that little volley back, like, hey, PlayStation's not doing so good either. And the
sure,
more I
yeah,
thought
yeah,
about it and I read up on this a little bit, I was like, oh, this actually isn't a huge deal. We just happened to
right.
hear about it because if this is a year where they put out Final Fantasy Rebirth, Rise of the Ronin,
Mm,
and if the rumors of this follow-up to Astrobot are true, and that might be it could be a holiday game, even if it's a VR only game, but if it's a good one, another good Astrobot game, then they've got at least a handful of solid exclusives to point out and say, we did have a solid year of exclusives. It just wasn't
right.
the big heavy hitters. And this is coming out of Giant Bomb, Jeff Grubb. He's one of those guys who pretty regularly has a pretty good scoop into these
Hmm.
companies. Um, but he is saying that all they mean by that is they're 10 to 15 million sellers, God of Wars, Horizons, Ghost of Tsushima, like established IP that everyone's clamoring for sequels for, like every year. There's no plans for any of those. That's kind of what's being said.
Yeah,
So
but also that doesn't necessarily mean not new stuff, maybe, right?
correct.
Like
It
it
did not
just
say that there will be no new IP. It was
right.
just talking about these
So
established IP. There's nothing before April of 2025 for any of those. So
yeah,
the biggest one that answers the question for me is Ghost of Tsushima. I kind of would have thought we might be
mm,
seeing that maybe this year or early next year,
sure.
because it's been 4 years now, and also with a sequel like that, I don't imagine they have to build everything from scratch again like they did the first time around.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, probably not going
Hey,
to
let
happen.
them cook. Let them cook.
Let them cook. Hey,
Let
if
them
if
cook.
it's going to make Ghost of Tsushima 2, the next step up from what that first amazing game was, fine with me, man. Take your time.
Yeah, exactly.
Take your time. I know I should be more angry at it because I've been told I'm an Xbox, but
Right. Yeah.
I'm not
We're
angry about
always
it.
supposed to just be angry about things, Tim. We
I
just
know.
everyone needs to be angry.
I keep
More
dropping the
angry.
ball. I don't have enough anger. I feel so worn out. It's been a long, like 3 weeks or so with sickness and work being crazy and all this stuff. I just feel too tired to get mad about this kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
I'm too tired for anger.
I'm too tired for this. Maybe that's the old man in me that's coming out. I'm just kind of like, I
Sure.
don't have time for this. That's why I'm going back and playing stuff like Elden Ring. I'm just like, you know what? Just gonna go play some old comfort food.
Yeah.
Um,
Comfort food's nice.
Anyway, but speaking of Rise of the Ronin, excuse me. From what I've heard, it's been confirmed, according to news outlets in South Korea, that they canceled the release in that country. It's kind of interesting. It's something that we wouldn't think about over here, but it has to do with the game's depiction of a 19th century scholar named Shoin Yoshida, who is a controversial figure in Korea. And it has to do with imperial rule in Japan back in the 1800s. So I don't know all the details. There's probably there's definitely some history there. And it's interesting. I never thought about that piece too. Like, if you are portraying some historical figure, some countries aren't going to really like it, whether you're making them a hero or a villain or whatever, or even just talking about them at all. A country might be like, nope. So yeah, there's something about the release in South Korea, which I imagine that's a shame, because I would imagine, I know that's a pretty big gaming country, and
yeah.
So anyway,
bunch of weirdos. They're a bunch of weirdos. I don't know. It's a video game, guys. Why
Yeah.
It's just strange. It's just strange to me.
So anyway, so that's a thing. Alan Wake 2
is
the fastest selling Remedy game yet. I guess it's not a huge surprise. But did you finish that game, by the way? Did you finish?
It's a decent game. No, not yet. So, because I'll be mentioning, I finished the other game that I was playing later.
Okay, so you had to like pick and choose what you're spending your time playing.
I felt like I was in a good groove with the other one, so I was just like, let me just finish this one, because like Alan Wake 2, I'm like playing while my wife's in the room, because like it is interesting, but this one she's finding more confusing than the first one. She's like, I really don't understand what's going on, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point.
Dude, I felt that way for so much of it, to the point where I was like, do I just stop playing this and just watch a summary of it from someone? I don't know about this game. And then of course, as we learned with the Game of the Year discussion, it became one of my favorites of the year. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah. I'm not saying I totally understand it, but I do have a general idea now of the full plot. Even if I don't understand all of it, I have an idea of what was happening and what the goal was. And I'm very intrigued to see where they go next. So I'm glad. I mean, when this is fastest selling Remedy game, these are modest numbers. I think it's like 1.5 million or something. So like modest numbers compared to what we think of as like a mega hit in terms of sales. But for Remedy, it's apparently that's a huge number this early on.
Good. So I like hearing that, even if it's not, again, like 10 million. It's like, oh, if you guys are happy with this, then that's good, you know?
Yeah, for them to be like, to announce it as a celebration makes me pumped for them. Hey, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is good. On the negative side, a couple of negative pieces. I'm not trying to be negative, Nancy.
Oh, jeez.
A couple of negative
we went up to
pieces.
P and then dropped to N.
I know, we're dropping it back down. I'm sorry. This is more of like a summary of things we already knew. We've known that Embracer has just sucked as a company for a while now. Like, as the news started to break a year or two ago, they're acquiring all these things. It was like, okay, interesting. And some of that news was even accompanied with game announcements, or even if not an official announcement, more like, hey, we're going to have this team start working on whatever. Like, there was some excitement with some trepidation about one company owning all this stuff. And then they started to like shutter studios and fire people and cancel projects. And I was like, what the heck is happening? One of the funniest headlines.
They embraced everyone, Tim. They embraced them so hard, and then they snapped their little necks.
Yeah, it was like a Lenny from Mice and Men situation. They just hugged them all too hard. So there was a funny headline that the guy who voices Adam Jensen from the Deus Ex games claims that Embracer told him, stop talking about it. Like, stop. Like, no one cares about this. Stop talking about it. And I was like, jeez, no one cares about it. Why should he stop talking about it? You guys are weird. So I don't know if that's true, but that's like one of the headlines I saw recently. But anyway, someone did like a tally and kind of went back and looked through all the news and everything. And Embracer apparently confirmed this. There have been a total of 29 unannounced games that were canceled during a 6-month stretch.
29.
Yeah. Let's say that like a third of those were interesting or cool. That's still 10 games that we'll never see.
Yeah.
That's a bummer, dude. That's
also bad management. Why did you have 29 games going at the same time? Like,
all your different
focus your resources on 10 games, right?
How do you not see whatever financial struggles they ended up hitting. I don't know what it was, man. I don't know what happened that made them change their minds and all these things. Maybe it could also be a thing where they've known this all along. We're going to acquire and sell off and liquidate. Like maybe that's always been part, a lot of these
Sure.
corporations with the way that assets work and stocks work. I don't know how all this stuff works, man. I'm not an economist. I don't work the system. Like I don't understand that stuff. Who
Mhm.
knows? They probably benefited in some way, shape, or form from acquiring and then liquidating a lot of these um, teams. I don't know how exactly,
Real,
but yeah.
real dumb. It's real dumb, Tim.
Super dumb. All right, so I also wanted to give this a shout out because this guy created one of my favorite game
Yeah.
series ever. But Yoshitaka Murayama. I'm horrible with names. I'm sorry, Japanese names
I think
specifically.
that's
But
pretty solid. That's pretty solid.
um, so he was the creator of the Suikoden series and was currently working with what's the name of that studio? Like Giant Rabbit or something like that. They
I
were
might
the
forget what the
ones.
name of this thing.
They were the ones working on the Aiden Chronicle games. He directed Aiden Chronicle Rising, and of course he was one of the founding members of the one that's working on the 100 Heroes games, which is slated to come out here in just a
Yeah.
couple more months.
Rabbit and Bear Studio.
Rabbit and Bear, that's what it
Rabbit
was. I
and
knew it was
Bear.
something with Rabbit. So yeah, apparently there was some sort of complication with an ongoing illness. They didn't get really specific.
Ugh.
Um, but I guess he died like a couple weeks ago, and they just now announced it.
Oof.
But super, super sad, especially. And you said this in our chat too as we were talking about it. It's like it's of course tragic when anyone dies at a younger age. I'm not sure how old he was, but I don't think he was much older than 50. I don't think he was super old yet.
Yeah.
It's one thing when you hear like, hey, someone just turned 99 and they passed away in their sleep, and it's like, dang, that sucks, but what a life, right?
Yeah.
Something like this is tragic. But then yeah, he didn't get to see his new love letter to his old game series come out, and see people
Yeah.
enjoy it and hear the reaction. It makes me hope that much more that this game delivers with how much they've delayed it and how cool it looks. I really hope they deliver a great game with Aiden Chronicle 100 Heroes.
Yeah. He
Um,
was 55, by the way.
55. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So super sad.
It's just yeah, the fact that like this thing was kickstarted and it was really successful,
Mhm.
because clearly people miss Suikoden and they're like, all right, well, a spiritual successor, yeah, absolutely, give us that, please.
Mhm.
Um, and Konami sucks, so this that yeah,
That they do.
so they had to take the reins and do something different, and yeah, it's just he doesn't get to see the culmination of that.
Yeah.
So it sucks. Yeah, it does. It's a big bummer. It's very
Yeah.
sad.
I agree. So that was kind of sad out of nowhere news. When you see that kind of headline pop up, you're like, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was definitely a bummer, but really appreciate the work. And of course, didn't know him personally, but the work that he created did have an impact on me big time, especially as
Yeah.
a young gamer coming through and experiencing. That was really the first time that game and Chrono Trigger, like the Suikoden games, are the first time that I really got invested in story in gaming.
Yeah.
It was at least during that era. There's probably a handful of games that I would attribute to that, but that was one of the biggest ones. And so yeah, I was actually re-ranking my favorite games recently. I was just kind of going through like, hey, what are my favorite, like, what's nostalgia and what's truly, truly, truly my favorite games? And Suikoden 2 is still right there at the top, man. It's still in that top spot, like right alongside with Chrono Trigger. They always kind of flip flop. But yeah, super important game to me. I love that game. And
Hopefully
hey,
the remake or remasters come out, because I mean we haven't heard a peep.
that's right. Konami's gone pretty quiet on those. I assume they're still happening because they've shown a lot of details on them
Mm,
early on, and they went quiet. I
yeah.
wouldn't imagine it's a thing kind of like that weird Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake that seems to maybe
Oh,
have been squashed. This
I know.
feels more like they are just doing more to it, but I could be wrong.
Sure. I mean, the
Um,
games already exist. They're older games, so it's not like they need to keep bombarding us with, and I'm fine with them not doing that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, I would love
just
like
yeah,
just drop those in the summertime, like a June release for some great remakes. I would
yeah,
love that
yeah,
because there's outside of years like last year. Every few years there's like a busy June. Like I think we had Last of Us Part 2 one June, we had Final Fantasy 16, but usually June is a quiet month where you'll get like a tennis game or like an Advance Wars. You'll get like something random that's
yeah.
interesting. So anyway, that'd be a good month to release it. But all that to say, uh yeah, that Murayama passing away, super sad, super surprising, but just wanted to make sure I called out how awesome his work has been. So
I hope that game sells gangbusters.
yeah, man, I
Everybody go
hope
buy
that
it.
I hope that it does too. I imagine even with just the Kickstarter support that you're talking about,
Yeah.
I hope they're doing well. I would hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, would love to see them have a lot of success with that. So, all right. All right, let's shift gears over to this official Xbox podcast. Listen, you know it's serious when corporate leaders decide to sit down and have a podcast about it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, so
Absolutely. Very serious.
very
More
serious,
serious than us, even, Tim. More
way
serious than
serious.
even
Like
us.
we're not serious. Uh, but
How dare
apparently
you?
when all the news and rumors and leaks started to happen that Xbox is going third party. They're done making consoles. They're going to put Gears of War on PlayStation. You know, like
Right.
all these things started to be said. And it all stemmed, like, to me, it felt like the crack in the dam that ended up causing this big flood
Sure.
was, oh, looks like Hi-Fi Rush is coming somewhere. Oh, looks like Starfield might be hitting PlayStation. When
Mm.
those kind of things started to roll, and then the leaks, quote unquote leaks, started happening of people with sources of who knew sources that
Sure.
all that, hey, they're even exploring what Halo could look like on PlayStation or whatever. People started freaking out, and I'm sure you saw this too. People were like selling their Xbox stuff. They were quitting streaming Xbox. Did you see all this stuff? Did you see the
No,
reaction?
but I mean, I'm not surprised. Probably taking it out back and like with the, with
Oh, it
the
was
hammer,
crazy. There,
with the
go back and look. Now, some
sledgehammer.
of these people might have deleted the post by now, but the reaction was such that you would have thought that they said, effective today, we're producing no more Xboxes, and anything you've purchased digitally on Xbox is gone. You don't own it anymore.
Sure.
That license, like, you would have thought it would have been something extreme and harsh like
Right.
that.
We're
That
shutting down everything
we're
Xbox.
shutting it all
Everything's
down.
gone.
There's servers will be done. Like nothing. Halo's gone. We sold Halo to Embracer. How about that, people? Like
Oh
that kind of
no. Oh
like that
no.
that kind of news. So you would have thought that would happen. Like, based on the responses, were so funny. A lot of people were just kind of like, they would put a big rant up. I supported you for all these years. I was like, whether it's content creators or influencers or wherever, like that, I was full on Xbox and you just broke my heart. Like all this stuff.
My
And
heart. You broke
it
my
was
heart.
crazy, man. Really, really crazy. And
You know
so
what's the
Phil,
problem, Tim? Is like their heart may be broken, but you know what's actually broken is their brain.
yeah,
So
the brain's
yeah,
where
the
the
brain.
breaking is happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, Phil Spencer saw a lot of this, and he put out one of his famous Phil Spencer type lines. We hear you, we're listening, and next week we'll explain everything about the future of Xbox. And it's
Sure.
one of those things where it's like, really, you're gonna tell everyone keep freaking out for one more week, and then we'll get back to you. Like,
Yeah.
Kyle
Yeah.
and I talked about this last week, how stupid that was. Like, is that seriously your response right now? Because we made some guesses last week, and I don't remember exactly what we said. I might be contradicting myself, but I'm pretty sure we said something to the effect of, "Hey, nothing's going to be super clear, but they are going to try to reassure you that they're still making consoles. It's still worthwhile with exclusives,
Yeah.
and like there'll be some talk about that, even if it's not. They won't make it 100% definitive. We would never, because you shouldn't believe any CEO that says we would never fill in the blank, for the most
Right.
part.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if there's an opportunity to make money down the road, if things change, any company would do the thing, whatever the thing is.
Sure.
Um, includes Sony, that includes Nintendo. If there's money to be made, if there's a shift that's happening in the industry, and that's how they're going to survive, better believe they're going to do it. So anyway, they get on this podcast. I didn't even listen to the whole thing, but I did read some summaries of it, and I heard some clips of it. Uh, and essentially, it's exactly that. They're like, "Hey, we are not stopping making hardware. It's a huge part of our business, always will be. We've actually got our next gen console in the works already, and we'll talk about this in a second, where they said it's the largest technical leap ever between
Sure.
generations. We'll
It
talk about that
always
in a sec.
is.
But that, yeah, yeah, um, they
Which, that makes sense.
it does. You got to say that, right?
I mean,
They
you're not going to say this is actually weaker than what we're currently have on the market. Like,
we're gonna call it the Xbox Series V, because it's worse than the ones before. It's
yeah.
just taking a step back. Um, So they talked about how there's 34 million active Game Pass subscriptions, which I could have sworn a couple years ago they talked about how they wanted to get that number like way higher. So I don't think that's hitting the goals that they wanted, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Diablo 4 is
Well,
coming to
they've been
Game Pass.
increasing it.
They've been increasing it, right? And
The
apparently
price, that makes
PC
sense.
is PC is where most of the movement's happening. So like
Mm.
you're right, the price has gone up. I don't think their subscription numbers have leapt the way they wanted, but I'm pretty sure in PC it's kind of on a nice increasing climb because everything's
Yeah.
day and date on PC. Why wouldn't you subscribe to it if you like
Yeah.
Xbox? Um, so anyway, then when they talked about games on other platforms, the number one thing to know is none of the major IP that everyone was freaking out about were even talked about. They weren't even mentioned by
Right.
name. So that doesn't mean that stuff like, well, maybe they were mentioned by name, but stuff like
Starfield. They mentioned
Starfield
Starfield.
and Indiana Jones and Gears of War and Halo, there's no plans for any of these to go to other consoles. Now,
Right.
again, like I said before, if they ever need to pivot to do that to make money, you better believe they will if they ever
Sure.
need to. But for right now, that's something that people can maybe rebuy back their Xboxes. It's safe to play again,
Just glue it back together, Tim. You just glue
glue
it
it
back.
back together. It's gonna be fine. You don't have to break it. But they didn't even mention what I was trying to say was they didn't mention these four by name, but everyone's understanding based on the descriptions that Sea of Thieves, Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, and Grounded seem to be the four exclusives that were being
Mm,
referenced based on the clues that were there that are
yeah.
likely to be uh, available on PlayStation and maybe in some cases Switch. I could absolutely see Pentiment and maybe Grounded being on the Switch. Hi-Fi
Sure.
Rush maybe if they can get it to run smoothly. Same with Sea of
Yeah.
Thieves. Maybe like a cloud version of Sea of Thieves could be on the Switch,
Sure.
but
Sure.
um, absolutely going to be on PlayStation for sure. And I think what he talked about, and I kind of liked this. This makes sense if you're in a business and you're looking, you're like, hey, our audience for these is plateaued. We're not bringing any new users in based on these titles,
Hmm.
and they've got a pretty steady user base now. Like whatever that number has dropped to and kind of stayed at for each of the users who regularly play these games, that's kind of it. There's no more big. I mean, unless we're going to release new DLC or a sequel or whatever, there's not going to be any more spikes for these games on
Yeah.
Xbox. So what's the best way to get a new influx of players and new revenue from those titles? You just port them to a new console. Now you've got
Yeah.
yourself. What is the PS5 like 50 million install base or something? 50
Is it?
plus million, I think. So come on, why would you not do that? Especially if, unless PlayStation blocks you from doing it. But again, why would PlayStation do that? Because they're going to make money. Like everyone involved would make money with these games being on another platform. So I don't think it's a huge deal. I know a lot of people do. And I think everyone can calm down now. It's going to be
Yeah.
okay.
So like 50, around 50 million. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Probably
yeah,
would be
I mean that
higher
makes sense to me.
if manufacturing stuff was figured out. I bet you that number would be higher. But
Yeah.
anyway.
But I mean, it makes sense to me. I mean, why sit there and be like, well, we're just not going to share this ever? And you know, like at the end of the day, it is a business, and if they want to make a little extra monies, you know, with
Yep.
certain things, then why not? Like, you know,
Yep.
so
Totally agree. Totally agree. So there you go. That was the big Xbox news, everybody. Everything's gonna be fine. Everyone just
no,
relax.
it's not.
Everyone just relax. Uh,
And like the thing is, like, yeah, that's they were rumors. There was nothing like from anyone official, you know, Phil or otherwise, saying like, listen, like, there's some stuff for. It's not like Phil came out and was like, we're gonna talk about some stuff, you know, involving some games elsewhere, and we'll just, you know, it was just typical rumor type of, you know, thing, and people literally smashing their expensive toys or whatever,
yep.
you know, over rumors. It's have some common sense, people, for God's sakes.
Great.
Jesus.
That's a good response, Dan, for pretty much any overreaction.
Yeah, have some common sense.
And by the way, just real quick, this is not something that would be unique to the Xbox audience. The
Right.
PlayStation audience, the ponies, the hardcore ponies, not just people. There's people who prefer PlayStation and people who prefer Xbox, but generally speaking, they're normal. I think that's most folks. It's
Right.
the fringe people who like get a tattoo of their favorite console or cry when a CEO leaves. Or you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing. Uh, and people who laugh and love the struggle of the other company. Like those are the people on the fringe
Oh
that are
yeah.
out of their minds, and they'd be the same ones if the roles were completely reversed and Sony, all these rumors came out that they're going to put their stuff on Xbox, and then they
Mm,
announced like just some of our smaller games, no big deal, like Meet Your Maker and whatever, some of these smaller
sure.
games that were exclusive to us that we're going to put on the other console. um, there would have been an equal, in my opinion, overreaction initially if it sounded like, are you really putting God of War and
Oh yeah.
Spider-Man on Xbox. Like, what are you doing? And
Oh
there would
yeah.
have been all the same outcry would have happened. I mean, some people were like posting pictures of themselves going to buy a PS5, and they're done with Xbox. Like they were Xbox for life, and now I was
Excellent.
like, first of all, you should buy a PS5 anyway. It's an awesome system if
Sure.
you got money to do it. But
Yeah.
anyway, the reaction would have been the same either way because there's crazes on both sides.
Oh, of
But,
course.
yeah,
That's the case literally in anything, right? I mean, you talk about politics, there's the lunatics on both sides. So.
there's lunatics everywhere.
Yeah, they're
And
all around us.
the internet, unfortunately, has made them a lot louder and more notable than in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. Well, let's talk about some other non-new stuff that we're playing or watching. Now, Dan, I know you weren't you didn't join us last week because you were doing some streaming. So, what else have you
Mhm.
been playing and spending your time with gaming or watching?
Yeah, so besides Final Fantasy 2, I finished Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, you
I
did.
survived. I did survive the game, Tim. So
So,
mission accomplished.
give me your summary compared to Fallen Order, which I know you liked but had your qualms with. What do you think about Jedi Survivor when it was all said and done?
Yeah, it clearly was a game where they were like, all right, so we made the first one, we did that thing, but like maybe development was truncated because there was all that kind of tomfoolery going on with EA and Star Wars, and they were
Right.
canceling projects. So then Respawn came in. They're like, all right, let's do a project, but like they didn't have the full spectrum of time that maybe they should have had. You know, that's kind of like what I got, at least in my opinion, from that game. But for considering what may have been a truncated development time, they did a pretty great job of creating something within the Star Wars universe. And this to me just feels like it's what they would have wanted to do if they just had, you know, the ability to do whatever they wanted with that first one. Obviously, I jokingly mentioned the whole like the open areas, the areas being more open, more fleshed out. And yeah, just it's just a much more like ironed out and fleshed out
Felt
experience
more
compared to the
complete,
first
didn't
one.
it? Like the overall
Yeah,
experience is
for
more
sure.
complete.
Very much so. And it was fun to explore. It had that same kind of like sort of like a little bit of of essence of a Souls game. Um that the first one had, but with the sort of Star Wars sheen over it, and using obviously more maneuverability and stuff like that, and the abilities that you had. It's also sci-fi, so compared to medieval fantasy. But yeah, the story is really great. Very like to the last 2 hours, Tim. What an emotional roller coaster.
Isn't it crazy? Like when games do that, when they take a broad story, but then they narrow it down to this personal conflict.
Yeah.
That it does have a pretty big impact, but for the most part, it's really between just a handful of characters, two in particular.
Yeah.
And I just loved that, man. It felt so personal at the end to me. And I
Well,
liked that.
especially with the first one, because it's like your characters return from the first one. So you're like, oh yeah, the gang's here. Like, and things get going and you're like, oh shit, like things are happening. And yeah, and then obviously there's new characters involved and there are twists and turns, and you're like, oh man, I wasn't like quite expecting that until like there was a certain moment where I was like, all right, something's up with that person.
Gotcha.
And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, you're a real son of a bitch.
the twisty twist happens.
Yeah, and then the twisty twist.
And not only does the twist happen and there's a big chase sequence, but then when you have the confrontation, there's an additional twist about that person you didn't know, and I don't want to say it. People need to play it. But it was such a brilliant way to build a twist on top of an existing one already. Like you already kind of had a character make a turn, and then you learn something about them. Like, what, this whole time?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I thought that was very clever and just well written too. And the voice acting was great. They delivered great on that. Maybe it wasn't perfect. Maybe in a movie would have seen it coming. But as far as game stories go and the way that games usually unfold their story, I felt, even if there were some hints of it, genuinely surprised in a lot of ways, and just kind of in a thrilling way, like surprised in a really good way.
Yeah.
Man, what a cool way for the story to go. They could have gone a couple different directions, and they chose to go this way, and I really, really like it.
Well,
Yeah,
Cal even says at one point, he says while they're on the ship there, he's like, how did I not like, he
yeah,
acknowledges like, how did I not know, like,
yeah.
based off of something,
Right, right,
um
right.
but yeah, it's just, yeah, it was really cool. And then and yeah, and
Voice
then at
acting
the end,
amazing again in this one, right? Like that was really good again, I thought.
yeah, I can't remember the actor's name that plays Cal. Is
Cameron
it
Moynihan, I think.
Maury? Yeah. Yeah, he did a great job there, and definitely showed some good range at the end there, especially.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really good. I did enjoy it. I don't know where, so I'd have to remember what my like top 10 list is and where that would fall there. Um, but it was definitely a really great game. I really didn't have like any qualms with it, like
I
that I could
think if
think of.
you're already a Star Wars fan, it's like myself. I'm not saying I'm nearly the Star Wars fan Kyle is. Everyone calm
Yeah.
down. But I am a very big Star Wars fan. Love all the movies, love all the games. I spent way too much time in those worlds in various ways. Um, and so for me, it was like it took it an extra step up. I think the same thing probably happens with you with something like Final Fantasy 16 when they just nail what Final Fantasy is supposed to feel like,
Yeah.
and they just hit it correctly. It's going to hit for everybody, but it's going to hit for you even more than your
Yeah.
average gamer. And I think for me with Star Wars and for others with Star Wars, it feels the same way where it's like, man, they just nailed it, dude. They nailed all the right moments. The music was perfect, and I was going to ask you too, all the different combat styles and stances they introduced. I
Yeah.
shouldn't say all that. They introduced a couple new ones, but they were so good. Like I loved the
Yeah.
variation
Yeah.
of combat. Did you like that part of it?
Yeah. It's interesting to like, because all right, so there's one particular one where it's like, okay, so this makes sense based off of the newer movies, but like there has never been, at least that I know of, me personally, of a Jedi or a Sith that has that type of lightsaber, except for the one guy later on, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah,
because that exists then, they're like, well, we can introduce it here, but it's
right.
like no one else has had that type of lightsaber, so it's like it's kind of weird, but it's cool for gameplay because it's
I
like, well,
agree.
that's
You're
pretty
talking about the
sick,
cross guard one that has the little Kylo Ren
Yes.
style.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
that's more of
agree.
the heavy sword, you know what I mean? Like,
So they did the same thing, but it was easier to introduce it. Back when Darth Maul became a character and had the twin, like the double
yes.
bladed saber,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
wasn't a thing until Phantom Menace. Like it didn't.
Right.
No one had that. There might have been like some fan fiction that maybe someone thought of it, but it wasn't
Sure.
officially in Star Wars till then. And then you look at games and stories and cartoons that came out after that, and they would go tell stories in the past, and they would kind of talk about they would have that all the time. Like now that's a pretty
Sure.
common thing, even though it wasn't before. This one's a
Yeah.
little tougher because there's been so much Star Wars content, and we
Right.
haven't
Yes.
seen that exist until Kylo Ren, and now they're
Yeah.
introducing it in the story that's supposed to be
In the
before,
past.
yeah, before Episode 4 even happens. Uh,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it's one of those
But
things that's
that's
hard to reintroduce something that big, like
yeah.
a saber style that apparently is pretty awesome, but no
Yeah.
one's ever used it. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. I just thought that was like a funny thing, but like I actually don't care. It's not a big deal.
Right.
Like
It's just
it
one of the things you
doesn't like break
notice.
my immersion.
No, you just notice it. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
They did a cool thing in this one with an early villain character that has a really cool arc in this game. The
Yeah.
the one-armed guy, he's just I
Yep.
thought really fascinating, kind
It's
of
an angry
intimidating
dude.
character. Yeah, yeah. But I liked his character a lot. But he turns that lightsaber crystal red.
Yeah.
That
Takes
was
it
cool.
out and it starts changing color. Like,
That was really cool. It's like, dude, he essentially used the dark side to change with this thing. That's
yeah.
crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm glad
Um
I'm glad
yeah,
you finished it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's an excellent game.
yeah, it is really good. And yeah, I'm curious to see um because what's the main guy there? Stig or whatever, like left? Stig
Oh
Arvinson or
yeah, yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
Hmm.
Like he
Hmm.
left, so it's like, oh, okay. Well, hopefully the third one, which I'm assuming they're planning to do,
Yeah,
will
I
be
would be
okay.
surprised if they're not already in development for it, but I could
Right.
be wrong.
So hopefully, yeah, have a nice little wrap up there of whatever that is. And then I'm kind of curious with Cal's character, is like, does it end with the third one? Because again, this takes place like in the middle of like timeline wise of everything. So it's
Yep,
like what does that entail? So
yep,
curious to see
yep.
where that ends up. If he
Agreed.
ends in like the show or something, Um, but Yeah, that was good. I liked it. I did like it. And then yeah, obviously now just kind of swung back to Alan Wake 2, so I'll try to finish that before Rebirth comes out.
Yeah, 12 days. You got time. You can do it.
Gosh, I don't know if I do. I mean, I think I'm like halfway through. I think I'm a little past halfway through with Alan Wake. So
It depends on how much you care about getting all the little extra secrets and stuff like that.
yeah. I love secrets, Tim. I do love secrets.
I know.
Love secrets.
I do like the way Alan Wake does it too, especially with Alan's side of things. When you find the words of power that are like hidden,
Yeah,
those are pretty clever. But
yeah, it is. And then I finished 2 shows. We'll start with the low and then we'll end with the high.
Let's do that. Good call. Opposite of what we did for our news, our headline segments.
Right.
Again, it's a good call.
So I was like, oh yeah, I watched that first episode of Marvel's Secret Invasion and then back to it. So I circled back around and I finished it.
Okay.
Man, I mean, apparently people really hate the show. I wasn't like mad at it or anything, but I don't know. Yeah, there was definitely just something off about it. I don't know. Did you watch it or? Okay.
Initial reactions were mixed, and I know that we've got more positivity about Marvel stuff on our show than possibly other places.
Sure.
But as the show got on, we got real quiet about it, and then by the end, it was like, oh, that wasn't good. So like, I knew it was bad. I just knew it was bad.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, it feels it's like hard to put your finger on it. There's just something. I mean, you got Samuel Jackson in there. It's literally like he's Nick Fury. It's centralized around Sam Jackson as Nick Fury, and it just feels like the quality isn't quite there. I mean, there are some moments that are interesting, but then like the show that unfortunately just turned out not to be very favorable. Like there are deaths in the show that are like, oh wow, okay, like so now it's just that person's gone and unfortunately they're gone on this show that like people don't really like, so that really sucks. And and then trying to think, the ending is just kind of weird because yeah, there's like there's the big climactic sort of battle, and then that character is just like, so is that character just like the strongest person in the Marvel universe now because of reasons I'm not going to say because of spoilers. Like it's just really weird, like just all of a sudden what they're capable of doing, and it's like, what does that even mean in the grand scheme of things? I don't know, man. It's very straight. The thing is, like, I don't read the comics, so it's like I don't know fully what the Secret Invasion is in the comics, but I swear it was like much more like grandiose. Yeah. Like I think it was like literally like people found out like, oh, Thor that we've known is not really Thor. He's actually a Skrull. Like it was more like kind of big picture sort of like situation. And in this, it's just condensed to like, oh, it's on Earth, and like that's it. And it's like, well, I mean, that's kind of lame, unfortunately.
That is pretty lame. But think about how ticked off general audience would be if you try to pull something like that. Like, hey, the character that you've known and cheered for 18 movies hasn't been that person the whole time. Like, yeah. All right, the multiverse is making people mad and frustrated enough, myself included in some ways. That would be a disaster to try to do something like that.
But this is even outside of the multiverse because it's literally
boobies.
Like
boobies.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
big boobies.
Scroll boobies.
Scroll. Yeah.
But like it's so it's a little bit interesting of like, all right, so they do kind of like fit it in a way that works because obviously Nick Fury is connected very much so to to Marvel, right? Captain Marvel. And they kind of work in the scroll thing in that way of like it is technically sprinkled throughout the past, and they explain how they're there, and the scrolls are able to change, right? They can physically change into others, so it makes sense that you wouldn't know they've been around until all of a sudden they felt like, you know, implementing them in a movie or a show. So like it does work, but yeah, it's just, I don't know, the quality was just weird. And that intro, the AI generated intro, like why? What are you doing? Why are you making a AI generated intro? Like what the fuck are you doing?
Because
you guys have billions of dollars.
I think at this point they're like, why not? We've got so much money. Let's just test some things out and see what works. Let's just throw some things against the wall. We got so much money. I have no idea. I don't know. I really don't.
I will say so. I'll throw a positive thing in. I really
let's do
like
that.
the intro song of Secret Invasion. I really like that song. I think it's really like creepy and ominous, and it like works to like what the idea of Secret Invasion is.
There you go.
So that's something.
That is something. Good for you.
That's something.
Way to dig deep and find something positive.
Yep.
That's
Exactly. I dug into my insides, my scroll insides, and I found something positive.
I think part of the frustration for a lot of fans with Secret Invasion, from what I saw from the outside looking in, not just with people like Kyle and Jeff, who I know ended up not liking it as much as they did initially.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of the frustration was there's a lot of awareness of what Marvel can be. When it's done
Right.
well, it can be so good. And so we've even seen it. Like they loved stuff like Loki and whatever else. So like there's really high quality stuff that's there. So when they, for all intents and purposes, kind of fall on their face, or at the very least take a swing and don't really get full connection on something they're trying to do, it's just it's going to feel a little disappointing because the bar is set really high. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Fair to say.
Jeff,
But
like, is there something that you can remember specifically about it that you like, if you point at like about Secret Invasion? Because I'm trying to think. I mean, I just finished it today, so I'm like still like in my brain trying to like I can't quite put my finger on like what it is about the show that's like that makes it so it's just not great. Like I don't know, man. It's just there's some. I don't know if it just feels like there's just not really anything that happens. There's nothing like really specific that happens, right? There are like little skirmishes, like little firefights that happen, and freaking fury. I keep saying furry.
Furry fury.
Well, you know what's on your mind.
Fury just shows up randomly in places and then leaves, and I don't know. It just feels like a nothing show that kind of like nothing really happened. Like,
by the way, I think we're getting your laptop audio or something, or your webcam audio or something, Jeff, instead of your mic, because you sound way different.
Oh
yeah, it's a little echoey or like far away sounding.
That's what it
is. It's the web.
There he is.
Yeah.
Oh, listen to that sultry sound. Much better. Go ahead.
I don't get it. I plug this in. Whatever. It's fine. Whatever.
Whatever.
We're fine.
Everything's great.
Hey.
But you know what's not fine? Secret Invasion. It's not good at all.
Not good.
Hey, speaking of whatever, Scott Pilgrim takes off. Whatever. No, do you not? You don't get it? Okay, never mind. All right. I was hoping one of you had seen it, so you got what I was referencing.
I saw it. I binged it, so I don't remember.
What's his face? Ex-boyfriend on the skateboard. Because this is my United States of whatever. No,
yeah. Who did that? Blur? I don't remember who did that. Whatever.
No, it's actually not a real song. My wife was Googling it because like I immediately started cackling because like I remembered that song because it's not a it's not a real song. It's like it's like on an album of like not real songs that people just like kind of put together and it's just nonsense.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Of not real songs. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's like it's not like an actual artist that has like a whole album or something like that. I think it's just like a collection.
Was it in the movie? Was it in the Scott Pilgrim versus the World movie?
No. Okay. It was in this one scene where that one ex-boyfriend he just keeps saying whatever, and then the song.
I think it's YouTube famous or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's what.
I feel like that's where I first heard it.
So it's some kind of jingle someone made at some point. It's not a full-fledged like real song.
I was going to go down to the beach and be like, no, it's like, whatever.
Whatever.
That's the verse.
It is like
a good
minute
song for being a minute or whatever.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Awesome. But yeah, Scott Pilgrim takes off. So my wife and I watched it and we finished it today. Dude, that show is amazing.
Yeah.
That show is amazing. I mean, animation wise, holy shit. Unbelievable. It's like literally just ripped out of the graphic novel. And there are certain episodes. There's one particular one where Ramona is fighting someone and like there's different themes going on like of the style because they're basically fighting through all these different movies because the whole like concept of like Scott Pilgrim is like this, like all, maybe this is like another universe or whatever. So they're breaking into like another universe and like there's the different style movies. So like everything looks different on the outside. Like they'll go into there's a Japan where they end up in Japan. So the style looks different or like a cowboy movie and that looks different. So I like the way that was kind of flipping through as they were doing that fight. But yeah, I was not expecting what the show is actually supposed to be, because in my head I was like, oh, it's just going to be an animated version of what the graphic novel is, which, as far as I know, the movie is pretty close to what the graphic novel is supposed to be. It's pretty faithful to it. This show is not quite that. So, and I'm not going to say what that means, because that's the fun of it.
Yeah.
And I like the mystery of like Ramona going through and trying to figure things out, pertaining to what the main sort of, thing that is thrusting you through the show.
They tied it together to the movie brilliantly. Like it really is like a more of a. It's related to the movie. I'll just say that. It's more related to the movie than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that Netflix is crushing it with their animated stuff, man. I love that.
Yeah.
Very surprising.
I was shockingly, I was like, this is going to be fun, because it's going to be animated Scott Pilgrim. And I remember liking that movie. So I'm like, this is going to be fun. And then it's like, it's not what I thought it was going to be. And I was just like, this is fantastic.
Yeah. By the end of the first episode, you're like, what the hell is happening? Yeah.
Right. It's like, that's not what happened. Like, that's not what happened.
And they got the whole cast back. So we thought it would just be not retelling, just a remake, basically, like 1-for-1 remake, animated style. But no, it's a lot more to it.
Could have done that, and people would have been like, "Yeah, that was pretty fun." But they,
exactly.
Yeah, they went above and beyond and did something really cool and fun. And I super loved it. And shout out to I'm sure y'all remember the Mortal Kombat movie theme song. Dun 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 dun.
Oh, of course.
There's something at the very end of the credits of the very last episode. I don't know if you stuck around, Jeff.
Mm.
There's like a remix of it.
I don't remember if I did.
Oh, it's
I
really
can still
good.
hear the guy yelling Mortal Kombat in that song.
Well, so he yells, Scott Pilgrim takes off. He actually yells, Scott Pilgrim takes off. And it's like a chiptune version of that song. Like that's what the end credits are.
We need more techno beat oriented songs of somebody yelling what the title of the thing is.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. We do.
Yeah, we need way more of that.
Yeah,
and
listing the names
like old
of the
school
characters.
period pieces, like
Downton
Abbey.
And then he lists the name of all the characters in Downton Abbey.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, please
Butler
watch Scott
guy.
Pilgrim Takes Off. Like it's
Maggie
fantastic.
Smith character.
Maggie Smith, and she's just looking annoyed in the corner, like this is so stupid.
George Washington.
Yeah, dude, this is so stupid. Oh God. They're old.
yeah,
That's good, man. It's good to have a non-recommendation with one, but a strong recommendation with the other. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's
Good
very good.
balance.
Please go watch
Thanos
it.
will be pleased by this recommendation.
Nice, very good.
And yeah, like I said earlier, Tim, I'm in the middle of replaying Remake, so Final Fantasy VII Remake. So
There you go.
Preparing for Rebirth.
Hey, how important is the integrate content, you think, before getting to Rebirth? Like, is it? Should I?
Well,
should I
Yuffie is
be,
a
like,
part of Rebirth, so I would imagine it matters.
Okay,
So
that's true.
from what I remember that happens in the DLC, it's not like if you don't play the DLC that I think you'll be necessarily missing anything out of the main story that you'll see in Rebirth.
Oh.
But that being said, I think personally definitely try to make sure to experience it just so you get
It's like a new way to introduce Yuffie. I know that. But
yeah, because like Jeff, in the OG version of 7, I didn't give two shits about Yuffie.
Same.
Because Yuffie was an optional character. You could literally play that game and end up not finding her because she would pop up on the map randomly at certain spots. And if you just happen to not find her, you could literally beat the game and never see Yuffie. So like
now they're forcing her down our throats. That's so woke of them.
Exactly.
Big time.
Female
character.
But yeah, like I
Final
really like.
Fantasy VII Rebirth. Sorry.
She's a lesbian now.
Hey, listen, they all seem to be getting along real well in the Rebirth trailers. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's a really good way to like get that introduction to Yuffie because clearly she's not going to be optional.
I was hoping you would just tell me, no, Tim, you're good. You don't have to play it because I'm
No,
trying
please
to find
play
lessons.
everything.
I reinstalled it myself with the intent of beating that before Rebirth next.
Also, Jeffrey, I'm
12 days.
Look right at you. Watch that video, you goddamn bastard.
I'm going to watch me watch it somehow. I don't
watch me watch it,
but watch me watch it again, not literally. Right before Rebirth comes out, like an hour before Rebirth comes out, I'll be like, I'll binge it and be like, oh, okay, oh, so that's why. Yeah.
Well, you also have Reunion too, or not, or Crisis Core rather.
Crisis Core, yeah.
Didn't finish Crisis Core, which is important Zach-wise. I think you could watch a video of that and just kind of be like, all right, I get that. But
no way I'll play that, but I'll watch a video of Crisis Core.
Yeah, I feel like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth when it comes to Crisis Core, depending on who you ask. Like, sometimes I hear, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Just play Rebirth and you'll be okay.
Different now anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I hear, you really need to play that because of Zach.
Dude, I've heard the same
I'm like, what the hell?
So, in my opinion, the last third of Crisis Core is important to like get like the idea of like Zach and how he's important in the whole mix of everything. And I think once you see that last third, Jeff, and the ending of Crisis Core, you're gonna be like, oh, I get why everyone was freaking out when they saw Zach at the end of, Remake. So
what?
Yeah.
You see him? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Spoilers for Remake.
What?
But yeah, you're gonna understand why people may have freaked out when they saw that. So
By the way, the demo for Rebirth had a cool little recap of Remake. You could watch. I don't know if you guys.
I wonder if they're just going to include that in the main game too.
They have to.
Wise.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
That was cool. I mean, they skip a ton, but they do a good job of summarizing the major hits and like who the players are. In the overall story. So they did a good job.
Definitely going to need a refresher with some of the people in there, so that's good.
I liked that. So even in addition to whatever YouTube research and we'd be doing, having the recap in the game is very cool too. I like that.
Yeah. UV DLC not super long though, by the way. So it's like 4 or 5 hours, I think, at the most. You could fly through that. So.
Oh, okay.
I haven't even beaten still Echoes of the Fallen, and that's 2 hours. Like, I mean, I don't know what I'm.
For 16.
Yeah.
All right, so I played a few additional demos on Steam that are only one's really worth, I think, checking out if you like the style of game. I tried Summer House. I don't really get it. Like, you're just putting together. It's almost like you're creating a little wallpaper, like a pixelated background, because it's not really a game. I don't know. It's a free-to-play game.
Sure.
It's very strange. I tried Tensei. It was not for me. I like the art style, but it is just not a very fun game where you're kind of bouncing around Marble Madness style a little bit. And the hand-drawn style does look cool, but it is just not fun to play. And I tried a little bit of Nevergrave, The Witch and the Curse. Not a bad game. It's very much a poor man's Dead Cells, and I mean that really literally. Like, everything about it feels like they're trying to be like Dead Cells with the way you move around and the way that the environments work. They have some creative stuff where your hat is actually your main character, and you possess this witch who's dead. You bring her back to life, and then you can separate at any point. She'll fall back into a pile of bones, and then you go through like a small little space, and then you resummon her on the other side. So like they have some puzzles where you have to navigate through
fun.
with just the hat, and then you bring her back. But yeah, very much Dead Cells, like just in terms of like how the areas are structured and the upgrades are structured and all that kind of stuff.
The visual style of it reminds me of Hollow Knight.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
It has some similarities to games like that too. It's not the most satisfying combat, but it's not the worst either. So it's decent. I think Nevergrave is a decent game. From what I played from the demo. And then I played this game called News Tower, only good for folks who like strategy management style games, but I loved the setting. You're running this newspaper like in the early 1900s at some point, and your uncle had it up and running, and it was one of the best newspapers, but of course they fall in hard times, and then the mafia comes after you because you wrote some story they didn't like, so they kind of crush your business.
We heard you wrote some stuff about us.
You're like a reporter, like, listen here, say, like, it has that vibe to it, of
love
like
that. Yeah.
So I like the vibe, I like the setting, and then but it's a kind of a 2D management game where you have an office building that you keep adding floors onto, and you have to upgrade your printer and hire reporters and assign them to stories and get things out by print by Saturday night. Like it's just like an old school newspaper sim game, but
sounds like a sim game.
I thought it was very charming, and it's certainly not for everybody, but if you like business management or whatever. If you like strategy sim games, it's pretty fun. So those are the games that I tried. Playing a lot of Elden Ring again too, doing another playthrough of that. That game is fantastic. And last but not least, I didn't even put it on my list here, but just because we watched it as a family recently, I just wanted to resurface it. I think it's one of Matthew Vaughn's more fun and one of his only family-friendly movies. Rewatched Stardust. That movie is super fun.
Yeah.
It's based on a book. My wife actually listened to the
This is the one I always confuse this with Zathura. This is the one with Charlie Cox, right? And Claire Danes.
Charlie Cox and Claire Danes, yeah. And
Good.
Robert De Niro plays a surprising character in it too.
I'm a wizard or whatever the hell he is. It's a magical story.
He's a sky pirate who actually likes cross-dressing. It's hilarious.
I'm a lady.
I like to dress like a lady. But anyway, it's really funny. Like Mark Strong is in it. Ricky Gervais is in it. Like the cast is crazy. Michelle Pfeiffer. It's got a really good cast. It's got a young Henry Cavill in a small role and Sienna Miller both in small roles. And then it's got who was the other actor that I was like, I can't believe he's in this too. He's at the beginning. It's the dad. Who's the guy who's the villain in the Punisher show? What's his name?
Oh, the show. Oh, Ben Barnes. I want to say
Ben Barnes.
Yeah,
the young Ben Barnes is in it. So like, when you watch movies like this, it's like from 2007 or something like that.
Yeah.
When you see a movie like this, you're just like, holy crap! There's just like actor after actor I've seen in things. Anyway,
it's a mid 2000s movie, so a lot of those people were like, Charlie Cox especially. Who the hell is that guy? You know, when he showed up in that movie,
he was a no one pretty much in that one.
Yeah,
right?
Pretty much, yeah.
But he's a great leading man. He kind of plays. He does a good job. So overall, very fun, charming movie. It's not. I'm not saying it's the best movie ever, but it's got vibes of like a Princess Bride, where it's a little bit funny with some fantasy, with a love story, and it works. And it's a fun family flick, especially, or chick flick night if you have a date night or whatever. So I think it's a fun one. So yeah, that's all my extra non-news stuff. And Jeff, I like that you're making a big entrance every week now. It's really.
I'm just gonna keep scheduling it. 11. I'll come in and do my quick hits and then get out of there.
But we've pretty much talked about everything. We talked about a whole bunch of news, some of the new stuff. I talked a little bit about my very short time with Banishers so far. I've only played that game for like 30, 40 minutes so far, but I'm very early in Banishers.
So is that still like, are you at intro levels still at this point?
Oh yeah, I'm very
explaining
early.
Stuff to you?
The big story moment that we all know is coming based on the trailers hasn't happened yet. I'm controlling both of the Banishers at this point. Like the story is unfolding, but it's very cool setting. I was telling Dan, so I like what Don't Nod is doing so far. They're casting a really cool vibe with this game, and the combat is at least serviceable. Hopefully it gets good, but right now it's serviceable enough for what they're trying to do. So I do like it. I can't give it a strong recommend yet. I haven't played it enough to say it's worth $50 yet, but it is fun so far. But I know you've been playing some Mario versus Donkey Kong, and Islands of Insight, and then anything else that you're playing.
Yeah, I don't have anything extended on List Fungi. I just played the demo and I bought the game after.
Yeah, I kind of said the same.
And
thing.
I haven't touched it since I bought it.
Same with Skull and Bones. I already got my impressions last week. I haven't played it much since the beta. So.
Yeah. Skull and Bones appears to be at this stage reviewing as well as Suicide Squad did, which is like yikes.
It's great. It's good news for everybody.
Yeah, I know. Good Lord. Anyway, what was the first one? Oh, Mario versus Donkey Kong. So I played the demo of that first, and the demo is like 4 levels, and then it shows you the ad for the game.
Okay.
So that's like 15 minutes of your time, basically, if you just speed run through it. That's probably one of the downsides to the game, some people might say, is that it's too easy. Whether you're on casual or not, I mean, I think the puzzles are very, very, very simple. At least starting out. Maybe they get more complicated as you go along. Sometimes there's some tricky stuff involving doing a handstand and flipping from it. Like sometimes there's tricky ways to navigate. But outside of that, I mean, I'm kind of welcoming an easy puzzle game at this point because it is a puzzle platformer. And I'm just kind of tired of walking into a puzzle like area and going, what do you expect me to do with this? You know, and then turning off the game after being really, really mad or whatever. So I when I bought the game and it's $50, it's not a full price remake. I went through the first area where it's like 6 puzzles, 6 platform, whatever you call it, 6 levels.
Yeah.
And then you do like it's kind of like a bonus level where you walk all the miniature guys through collecting a bunch of letters, and they follow you around. And then you fight Donkey Kong, and you hit them with like a trash can like 4 times or whatever. But meanwhile, while you're doing that, he's hitting buttons and it's activating certain platforms.
Is it Seth Rogen's voice?
You know, come hit me. I don't know.
It would have been great. Everybody would have loved it.
Yeah, totally.
It's fun though. It's fun. I'm having fun with it. I understand the scores not being much higher than an 8. Like it's that's the highest score. It's been kind of tapering around 7, and I understand because it is compared to Wonder, much simpler and much less ambitious compared to Mario RPG, which was way more overdue for a remake. It's not doing as much. Like it visually, like it looks very, very good, and the cutscenes especially look very like movie-like. But in terms of like Mario RPG was so old and needed that visual upgrade, and when I saw the pictures and the gameplay of the old Game Boy game, I was like, oh, it doesn't look that bad. Like I really thought it was going to be horrible.
The style of the Game Boy one was actually pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah. It looked pretty good. Like like you can kind of make sense of the 1-to-1 remake. Like kind of impressed by that. I like the game. I don't regret my purchase at all. I kind of wanted something easy that I can just like play when I'm drinking or whatever.
Simple concept gets challenging at times as the game progresses. But simple concepts are nice sometimes. You're just like, oh, it's all on one screen or maybe a little bit of a scrolling, but it's mostly right here.
Yeah.
Cool. And I can just look and see what I have to do.
Right, exactly. And it's mostly either, there are some enemies you have to either avoid or get rid of, and it's just so easy to do it. They give you like a hammer like 3 times where as soon as you grab it, you just start going like this.
Yeah.
They give it to you so many times that it's like, okay, this is almost like easy mode.
Just like in Jumpman. Remember Jumpman, that old arcade? Yeah, just like that. We're just like hammers as you run up.
Yeah. And you just can't control it. You can only control what direction you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's very old arcade style right there.
Yeah. It's a good game. And then Islands of Insight is the one I've probably sunk the most time into this week. It's I'm at like the 4-hour mark or something. The only reason it's not longer is because I know myself with this kind of game, and I'll just lose hours and hours if I start it up. So I try to balance my time a little better with gaming. But this Islands of Insight is pretty much an open world. There's light RPG elements, believe it or not, but it is an open world puzzle game. And it is kind of trying to do the Talos Principle thing and the Witness thing at the same time, because Talos Principle is kind of does open areas too. It's not as wide open as this is. Like this game is more like a Zelda open world where you're jumping from island to island to island, and they're all in one hub. Whereas Talos Principle is like, okay, you finish this area, now go to the next open area, and it's massive. So it's more like the Witness, I guess, map wise. But the Witness even then is a much smaller open world. And the puzzles are kind of more like the Witness too, where you just walk up to whatever you want to do and try to do it. But the puzzles aren't difficult like the Witness. Like on the Witness, I swear to God, it was like second puzzle. I was like, I'm done with this. I can't do this. Like it was just, it's so difficult. And there's way more variety in Islands of Insight. Like, I mean, there's the most common one you'll see are like little block puzzles where you have to fill in a white or a black space, and you have to connect the black spaces and connect the white spaces, but you can't segregate them or whatever, which is a little racist, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, what's that?
They have to be connected, okay, or you can't. And then there's some puzzles that are like that are like, okay, you can, in this section you can only use 2 white blocks, and in this section you can only use 3 white blocks. And if you use more, then it's like, oh, the puzzle's wrong, and you can't use a square pattern. Like, so they add more rules the further into the game you go. They're kind of like lightly guiding you to a harder difficulty instead of just going, this puzzle's impossible, good luck. Kind of like the Witness does. Like they do kind of inspire you, similar to, it's like Puzzle Elden Ring, where they have you approach an impossible puzzle and you go, oh, I'm not ready to do this yet. And you just have to walk away and go do something else. Because you haven't learned the basics yet. So the game is giving you story objectives to go actually do stuff. Like at the beginning of the game, you go to a couple islands to get your wings, because yes, you can fly around in the game, which is really fun, especially like now that it's openly multiplayer and you're all in one server with like 30 other players, and you're just all flying around each other. And
we're the only ones playing.
Yeah, we're the only ones here. Woo!
That's interesting. That is interesting, though.
Peak concurrent, really cool. 30.
And the other puzzles are more like environmental, kind of like what Talos Principle does, but way less complicated. Like even Talos Principle is way more complicated than this game. So I'm kind of like, between this and Mario versus Donkey Kong, I'm like, oh my God, we're in an easy puzzle era Like, easy puzzles. Finally, I can take a breath when I play these games. And it's just so easy to get lost in because you're like, what's that over here? What's that over here? And like, it's got that kind of like Elden Ring Zelda vibe, even though the stakes are way, way lower. It's like way lower.
Kind of nice though, isn't it? Like, not every game needs to be super stressful and like making you sit on the edge of your seat.
There's nothing stressful about this game. It's so nice.
Yeah.
And there are so many optional puzzles to do that get you the game's version of XP. I think it's like knowledge points or something like that. And when you get more of that, what you're spending it on is traversal abilities, like the ability to jump further, or to do like a super double jump or whatever. Like it's all traversal abilities, or to garner even more XP when you do certain puzzles.
I added it to my wish list because they took the demo down and it's not on sale right now. It's $30. Not that $30 is a lot. It's not a bad price for it. But
it's a lot for a game that's like, I don't really know a lot about this yet.
But I do know I need to change the pace because as I'm playing these more intense games, like, whether it's replaying Elden Ring or I'm gonna try to play at least Ender Grade for Final Fantasy VII Remake, these are a little more intensive. You're gripping the controller a little tighter, kind of leaning forward.
I am.
If you fail, you kind of like sit up. Like with Elden Ring, I feel like every time I fail a fight, I'm like sit up, like all right, we're gonna do this time.
Yeah.
So that kind of game where it's like, oh no, I can just stay in a relaxed position and just play it the whole time. I need that.
That's totally what this game. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to take a snapshot.
Oh, you got Dan. Nice snapshot there.
Whoa, what you doing there, guy?
Dan.
I'm
a little thirsty in that picture. I don't know if I like that.
I hit the hotkey for save on this.
That's my secret, Tim. I'm always thirsty.
Always thirsty.
Yeah. Yeah, baby.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I love it. I'm actually excited to put more time into it. It's just I know I got to carve out like a long window. To play it, and there's like no pressure to advance in the game at all. If I get stuck, I'm pleasantly stuck.
I'm very sold on it. It's just a matter of, all right, when do I buy? Do I wait because it's going to go on sale? So do I hold out?
Yeah, and it'll go on sale during one of the 8 sales that Steam does every year or whatever. Like they do so many sales. Good Lord, guys.
Yeah, they'll do a spring one probably in April if I had to guess.
Yeah, exactly. Or a President's Day sale. No, I'm kidding. They find any reason. Yeah, exactly. Other than that, I've like been playing more Helldivers 2. Of course, I finally got my battle in with the Terminator type of robots or whatever. They're terrifying. They're way aggressive. They have ranged abilities, whereas a lot of the bugs don't. A lot of the bugs are they'll just charge on you, melee you, spit at you sometimes. But these guys with the guns, man, good Lord, calm down. Those levels are freaking insane. Even on normal, I'm like, can we just get out of here, guys? Like, can you just like call the evacuation and get us out of here, please?
Everybody chill.
Everybody chill. Everybody chill out. I need Arnold to help me. Get me out of here.
Get the chopper.
It's such a good game, though. It's definitely one of my favorites of the year. Early contender, obviously.
Love it.
But yeah, some of the demos I played Mullet Mad Jack, which is just as absurd as it sounds. It's it's trying to do like a kind of a Neon White thing where you have X amount of seconds to do something, except Neon White is more like trial based and you're trying to get a better time. This one's more like you have 15 seconds to live, and each kill you get gives you another second or whatever on the clock. Yeah. But there's a lot of bad guys, so you're going to get a lot of seconds. And you can kick them, you can shoot them with your shotgun, whatever. And the levels are very very vibrant and neon looking, 80s looking. Like there's actually like a VCR type of thing that's happening on your on the screen as the game is running, because it's trying to do like an 80s thing, like a RoboCop type of dystopian thing of like you can only live on, what is it called? Adrenaline. Everybody in society can only live on adrenaline.
Oh, it's like the movie
unless
Crank.
You're super rich.
Like Crank, yeah.
Yeah, it's Crank. And Jason
or like
Statham.
Speed. Don't go under 55 or it blows up. I get it.
Jason Statham is the lead.
That's Jason Statham with a throat problem.
Yeah, that's when he had COVID.
I have COVID. It's not a big deal.
Anyway, it's really, really fun and funny too. It's fun. It's just it's a demo. Let's just diddle it and get out of the way. I tried the demo for Unleaving. I think you brought this up in the chat, Tim.
I did. Yeah.
And the game's not really doing a whole lot, like at least mechanically speaking. Just kind of running around.
Looks cool though.
Platformer. Yeah, but knowing that, and they tell you that in advance, like as you start up the game, they're like, X amount of artists contributed to this. and it's like, I don't know, 30 or 40 artists or whatever, like painstakingly hand drew. All the backgrounds are painted them, and it looks amazing. It looks so cool.
What game?
Unleaving.
Yeah, Unleaving. Great name, very emo.
I was just gonna say it sounds like a song title from an emo band from the mid 2000s, but all right.
Where are you?
I'm so sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Where are you?
Somebody actually played that at an open mic recently, and I was like, no way. And everybody was so ready.
No way, it's just time.
Yeah.
Whenever I see content from Emo's Not Dead, I love that guy. Like, I know that it's cheesy sometimes. Have you ever watched his content?
No. Where he has the two versions
He'll be
of
in a normal, like, I forget his name in real life off the top of my head, but anyway, he'll just be talking to his girl, and all of a sudden something happens. She'll go, "Oh no, please don't!" And then it cuts back to him. He's got like a black wig and black nail polish on, and he starts singing something by like Blink-182 or whatever. It's very silly, but it's very funny.
I found it. There's a YouTube channel.
I
can already tell by looking at the channel, like his picture is just ridiculous.
And he's a legit singer. Like he actually has put out real songs too. Like it's interesting mixture between like, it's mostly funny. It's mostly goofy stuff.
Yeah.
I'm here for the emo stuff. The emo revolution, if you want to call it that. Yeah. Let's do it. I'm game.
Yeah. And but it's self-deprecating and self-aware. That's the key to making that good. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else do I have new? I don't really have anything else new that I played. Kind of a slow week in that regard, on that front. But I did. Since we're on the topic, I did watch the first 2 episodes of like what is it called? The Dynasty. New England Patriots, that one.
Yeah.
So the first 2 episodes they're literally starting at the beginning of Tom Brady coming in as quarterback. Bill Belichick's already been head coach for a few years.
Why are you such a mark for the NFL, Jeff?
Hey yo.
Hey yo.
Quit being such a mark, especially a Patriot. Like you can see the Bills thing behind me.
I know, yeah.
Don't tell my friends that I watch this, even as we broadcast this to millions of our fans. Millions, yes.
Mm-hmm. Billions even.
I do. You know what? I'm just a sucker for the sports documentaries. Even like I even watched that quarterback one on Netflix where
I love the quarterback one. That was fun.
Where it follows Mahomes and whatever. One old guy who shouldn't be doing it anymore. Kirk Cousins. He's a miracle of a player.
You watch your mouth.
I know. He's like the new Kurt Warner where you're like, he's just going to keep going, huh?
Yeah.
They're
gonna make a movie about him. We know that.
Exactly. They're totally going to make a movie about him. They're going to call it Cousins, and everybody's going to be like, is this about these 2 cousins that got married? No. Okay, we got to change the name of the movie, guys. This is going to work.
Whoops.
Anyway, so I just love that subject, and I don't care who it's about. And so, yeah, they're genuinely starting at the very, very beginning of Drew Bledsoe's out. He's got like, he even had, he got a bad hit, and that night he ended up having to go to the hospital. They thought like he was like literally bleeding internally. And he had to go to the hospital. They weren't sure if it's going to be career ending or season ending. They weren't sure at that point yet. But he's healthy by week 6. But Tom Brady's killing it. He's killing it already. And Bill can sense it. Like Bill Belichick, as much of a dickhead as he is, like I mean, he might even admit that much about himself. Yeah. He is just. He came from Cleveland. He got kicked out of there because he fired the quarterback way too early, and the fans did not react positively. It was like, I forget the quarterback's name, Kozar, I think.
By the way, you know what's crazy? Belichick and Nick Saban coached together at Cleveland, and it was a failed tenure, but they were,
which is wild to look at where they are now.
The 2 best coaches in their respective levels at college for Saban and at NFL. So anyway,
they couldn't make it work with the resources
they were on the same staff for the Browns.
Yeah, and when they fired Kosar, he was the enemy of Cleveland, period. But so he's coming kind of off the heels of that because he'd only been a coach in New England for like 3 or 4 years by this point. But people still remember, like it hasn't been that long. So when Brady's in there and Bledsoe's on the bench healthy, fans are just like, this is just a Kosar situation, isn't it? Nope. In Tom Brady's first year as a starting quarterback, they go to the Super Bowl and win. So yeah.
Yep.
That was the 9/11 year because I'm pretty sure
it was.
I remember there being like
he got injured on the second play of like the post 9/11 game. Yeah.
There was something about like the idea of, as everyone was finally rallying back around America, that the team called the Patriots won it all.
Yeah.
You know, there was just something to all of that stuff.
Right. Yeah. And they were not a team that was doing well. Like the last year they had a losing record, I think, like 4-11 or whatever it was.
Dude, the Patriots sucked. I remember.
Oh no, they were trashed for a long time. Yeah.
Now Dan, you grew up in that area, so you probably know a lot of folks who were like embarrassed to be Patriots fans for a while, but they still were.
Yeah. I remember my mom's like starting to get into football and like, just like being like, oh, the Patriots lost again, or not. Yeah, the Patriots lost again. Oh man.
Yeah.
But we're used to that with the Red Sox too. I mean, they had lost for so long, so many years.
Then they turned into what Kansas City, then they turned into what Kansas City is becoming now, where it's like, oh my God, these freaking teams.
But see, everyone roots for them early. Like I remember everyone was rooting for the Patriots to win, and for a little while there, it was like, ooh, Tom Brady, what a great story, and then everyone turned on him and hated him for the rest of his career.
Super Bowl 3, by win 3 of the Super Bowl, you're like, God, shut up, bro, get out of here.
It's the same with Mahomes and the Chiefs. We're like, we were rooting for them 5 years ago. Like, hey, they finally won one. It's been since like the '60s. Good for them. And now it's like, shut up and sit down.
Yeah,
that's enough.
Yeah. Now, if they even sneeze on the sidelines, fans are like, "Oh my God, he sneezed! What an idiot! Get him out of here!"
Let's cut to Taylor's reaction to the sneeze.
I'll remember Deflategate. Remember that?
Yeah, Deflategate. They're going to touch on that in so the first episode starts with like kind of like a sizzle reel of what the whole show's going to be, and they definitely do go, oh, and then we got accused of cheating and blah blah blah, like recording practices, Deflategate, all that stuff. So it's going to be part of the show. It's because it's all during their legacy together, and they interview. That's the cool thing about it too. They're not just interviewing freaking Chip Bayless or whatever useless sack of bones out there that's going to just give you takes. They're talking to the people that played the game with Tom Brady. They're talking to Tom Brady. They're talking to Bill Belichick. It's all the guys that actually were there for all of it.
Talking to the victims of Aaron Hernandez. They're really getting nitty gritty.
They do show flash of him like Aaron Hernandez arrested for murder, blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh man, I can't wait for that episode. Because I want to hear what his teammates have to say, man. They've been very hush-hush about that. So
how wild would that be if you're like, hey, so-and-so got arrested. Turns out he's murdered several people. You're like, what?
What? And then he killed himself?
I just had lunch with that guy yesterday. Yeah. What?
Yeah.
That situation.
So wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, this show got me, and it could have just been the frame of mind I was in. I was enjoying my time with certain beverages and things I consumed. So I was just like really engaged. I was just like, I feel like I was this the whole time. It was just eyes open, mouth agape, just engrossed in all of it. And I was like, what else football related can I watch? And I literally just looked up. I shouldn't have done it, man, because I cried real hard watching it. I looked up Buffalo Bills documentary, and I found the 30 for 30 about the Four Falls of Buffalo.
Oh, the Four Falls of Buffalo?
Yes. And I've been putting off watching it for so long.
It's so well made, though.
It is. It's so good. I kind of wish it was more like a mini series because I want to see all 4 seasons.
They skip so much, and
they did. I feel like they did, especially with Jim Kelly out for most of the season on the I think it was the 3rd Super Bowl. And
that's a heartbreaker, man.
Oh yeah, telling me. But that man, that first Super Bowl with the wide right kick from Scott Norwood, and then seeing the fallout of that, there wasn't really a fallout at all. Like. That's the thing. These fans were, I'm sure there were some unhinged people out there. Don't get me wrong. There always is in every fan base. Sure, but the city as a whole, when they came back from wherever the Super Bowl was held that year against the Giants, they came back and the fans were like welcoming them in as if they won. Like they were just
small
like
town vibe there.
It was it's Buffalo. It's still Buffalo. Yeah. Like they talk about it in the movie. Like nobody knows where Buffalo is. Jim Kelly didn't want to go there when he was drafted. Like he was like, screw that. I'm not going there. He didn't go there until like 2 years into his pro career at AFL or whatever. So
another 30 for 30 about that whole draft debacle with all them was interesting too. Dan Marino and John Elway and Jim Kelly.
I gotta find that out. Dan Marino is I gotta look up more about him because I stumbled upon a TikTok where it was like every sports analyst, every former quarterback, every current quarterback calling him the best. And I'm like, oh, what do I not know about Dan Marino? Like I just feel
that one's called Elway to Marino. That's a really good one.
Okay. I got to catch that. But yeah, dude, I cried so hard when they said the Buffalo fans were out there and it was crowded at City Hall. They were out there and the fans were chanting, "We want Scott." And I just like wept. I was like, they're just telling him it's okay to fail. It's so sweet. Like it's just like I cried so hard, dude. I was not ready for that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, by the fourth Super Bowl, it was very evident that probably it may have even reflected in the fans too at home. Oh, that team was just tired. They were on a run. They were on a tear in the AFC, going to the Super Bowl 4 times. By the time the fourth
during the Cowboys run,
exactly. By the time the fourth game came around, they were just all checked out, like we love to do on the podcast. We love to check out of things. All of them were just tired, worn down. Like they had the starting lineup
all the way out.
All the way out.
That's how we say it. Yeah.
All the way. Yeah. They were like, "Oh, we're going again. All right, here we go. All right." The third one was like, "We're going back, and you better deal with it." The fourth one was like, I guess we're going back.
Guess we're doing this. I don't.
Against Dallas again? Oh God! All right.
Yeah.
But obviously the Bills fan of me loves seeing all that history. I just I do wish it was like a 10-episode miniseries because there's a lot of story to tell there for sure.
Still make it, because that Four Falls was probably good 7 or 8 years ago when that came out.
It was almost 10 years ago now. Almost 10 years. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It was filmed that long ago, and I'm like, how was that 10 years ago? That's so insane. And everybody dressed so stupid in the 2010s. No, I'm kidding. That's not a thing people will ever say, honestly.
No, we definitely.
By the way, do you guys see footage, whether it's sports related or not, from like the 2000s, and you think, oh, that wasn't that long ago, but everything looks so old?
Dude, everything looks so old. Like the clothes I was wearing, what the actual hell? I just don't.
Like early 2000s is a completely different generation than now.
It really is. I can't.
Even
being
just
a teenager during that time, it was like we were. Sorry, go ahead.
Jenkos, y'all remember Jenkos?
Oh, of course.
Oh,
yeah. And my brother was a big Jinko wearer, and he loved Insane Clown Posse. Went to their shows. Loved the Faygo, loved their soda.
A lot of corn with a K.
And so because he's my older brother, I was like, oh yeah, I'm into that too. Then like I loved corn, I love Limp Bizkit, I love Eminem, all of the White Rage stuff. I love that. I love that stuff back then. That was a weird decade because everybody, I feel like everybody collectively was like, what's our fashion sense coming out of the 90s? Because the 80s were shit.
90s.
The 90s were shit. 70s look great. 70s are coming back now. But what do we do? Fanny packs are out. What do we do?
Even like glasses
fanny packs were
frames.
Never in.
Now they're back.
Even glasses frames from the 60s and 70s are big now. Like people have like glasses up back then.
Yeah, and they think it's like a hot trend, and I'm like, oh my god, you look like a serial killer. Calm down.
Sure.
Anyway, that's all I got on stuff I've,
nice.
At least the stuff I want to talk about, the stuff I've watched and played.
By the way, that reminds me of this is a long time ago. Do you remember the guy? He was an internet personality who I think did some acting. John LaJoie, however you say his name.
John LaJoie, whatever. Yeah, he sings too. He does like a guitar thing, kind of like.
He does. His like parody songs and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had the glasses thing reminded me. He had a whole sketch. It was a fake infomercial for rapist glasses. And it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Jesus Christ.
But it has like those frames, and he keeps looking at the camera like, and he's got like these big creeper glasses on. Anyway.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Pretty funny.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, that's good stuff. I do wonder what happened to him other than playing Taco on the league. I feel like he just kind of fell off.
Oh yeah, he was Taco. I was like, I've seen him on something. Okay, that's right. He was in the league. Yeah. Well, hey, so he got a shot. No one else.
He did. Yeah. And he was great in that role too. He was very funny.
Yeah, he got a shot. All right. Well, I think that does it for us for this week. We've got 12 more days until the first like legit heavy hitter that we're all gonna play without a doubt game arrives, and that's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Cannot wait for that.
Yeah.
But I did delay our try hard tracker because Kyle misses it every friggin' time we do it. So I'm gonna wait.
Oh yeah, you want him to be here for that? Yeah, absolutely.
I want him to be here for that. So we'll probably do that next week as we build up to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Well, not only that week of Final Fantasy Rebirth, I'll also first off the day before is the Brothers remake, and I'm so hyped for that.
Oh, that's this soon?
That was this soon. Unless they hopefully, fingers crossed, delay it. Please delay it for the love of God.
That's actually an okay delay. Yeah,
it's a remake. It's okay. We're okay if you delay.
Yeah. Nightingale's supposed to be out this week too. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get that. I'm not gonna get that crap.
It's a Tim game.
It's a Tim game. It's a Timulation game. Yeah.
It's a Timulation. Oh.
Timulation. Oh wow.
That's been there the whole time.
It's been there the whole time.
We didn't see it.
What?
Oh man, it's like staring at the 3D posters that you're like, oh, just put your nose to it and then back away slowly. Timulation has said it the whole time.
Oh my gosh, I'm so mad right now. It's been like 4 years we could have been using this. Whatever, it's fine.
That's what the Matrix is about. It's about the timulation.
It is simulation theory. There we go.
Right there.
Stupid. No. That week, seriously though, I did buy a ticket. I'm seeing it February 29th. Dune Part 2 is that week too.
Me too. I'm going on the 29th.
Oh my gosh, dude. I am so hyped. And I've heard, I'm trying not to hyperbolize it in my brain, but it's hard not to when you hear the things that people are saying that have already seen it.
Totally agree. Yeah, that's going to be Dune Rebirth week. It's going to be crazy.
Dune Rebirth, absolutely.
Rebirth. Yep.
Dune
Looking forward to that.
So
all right, well, thank you guys for watching and tuning in. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Wieners.